All right, guys. Welcome to another edition of the MutantXperience podcast. Tonight, my guest for this evening is Brian, aka Bathtub Leviathan, from the Chicago FGC area. How's it going, Brian?
Doing fantastic.
All right, great. So, for those of you who are tuning into the Mutant Experience for the first time, I just wanted to give the rundown on the podcast since we're fairly new. And so basically, this is a podcast that I run to give Third Strike players a platform to promote themselves, their scenes, and their events. And so this week we have Brian from the Chicago area. And so tonight we're going to be talking, amongst other things, his entry into the FGC scene, and his particular scene in Chicago. And obviously, we're going to be talking about some major events that are coming to the Midwest, including Michigan Masters, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and of course the big Kahuna, if you will, the big Chicago event, Combo Breaker. And so, if you guys have any questions for Brian or myself during the show, just tweet them to me at MutantXP, or you can put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them sometime later on in the show. And so, of course, guys, let us know how the audio is. Let us know how the video is. Let us know how the quality is. And so that's pretty much that. So you ready to get this party started, Brian? It seems like you're ready, though, already.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go.
All right, Brian. So I wanted to go ahead and begin by, sort of asking you to tell us a little bit about how you got into video games, just in general. Was it something that you just did as a kid, or is your story similar to other gamers' stories, or is there something unique about, you know?
Uh, I'm a little bit closer to your age, so my stories are a little bit further back because
Uh
I was
huh.
watching the episode two, uh, and I was like, really? For like first system was Super Nintendo? I'm like, my first actual home system was an Atari 5200 with the trackball.
Wow.
So, and believe it or not, I was the kid where my dad actually briefly worked for Atari.
Really?
Um, so he used to do he was a tool and die maker, so he used to do the stamping. So like inside the control boards and like the consoles for it, he actually used to do the stamping stuff for that.
Awesome.
So it's like yeah, I actually like I was the Nintendo kid. My dad works in Nintendo, but it was for Atari and it was for a brief time where he did that. But yeah, my first system was an Atari 5200. I really dug it playing Centipede. I pinched my hands many times on that trackball.
Uh huh.
Um, Absolutely loved my first gen NES. Like love of Capcom came early on. The thing is, like, I my another weird one is my grandfather owned a bunch of like three flat apartments, and this one woman that he cleaned for, like, I don't know if it was maybe my grandfather was buying these games on the sly and telling me that, but I got hooked up with dozens of Nintendo games, but they were always like the weirder ones. So I didn't have a lot of like I never played a Mega Man as a kid, but like I had like Commando and all like the one-off ones. But the Capcom love came in really strong with DuckTales, because DuckTales was one of the all-time great platformers for when you're a kid. At that and Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. So it goes pretty far back. And I had Karate Champ too. So that was my intro to fighting games in general was Karate Champ.
All right. Sorry, but like everything after you said Commando.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Captain Commando?
No, no, no. This is just a game called Commando. It was kind of like early Nintendo kind of bootleggy. It was one hit death a la Contra,
Uh huh.
but like you basically had to start over. It was like a super obscure game. So like that's why I threw that one in there. It might have been an SNK developed, but yeah, it's just this one off weirdo game.
Yeah. No, no. Well, for the record, my first system was a Nintendo too, and so just to give everyone an idea of how old we are. um,
It's in that approaching. Well, I think yeah, I'm approaching 33 right now. So
yeah. So it was weird though when I first got my Nintendo. My dad got me the entire set, but I was too young to know what to do with the robot.
oh, well, yeah, the robot. That's cool. I had the two button arcade controller for it.
Okay.
I think the only thing I played on that was like the when they did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the arcade game home port.
Uh huh.
That's the only thing I ever used it for.
Yeah, it was the robot for that game, Gyromite. Um, dude, I had no idea. Like I was like, I don't know why. Like I don't like who gets their 4-year-old kid a Nintendo, right? Like, You
I
know?
got mine when I turned 5, I think, so that would have been 89. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I had no idea what to do with the robot, so I just kind of like played with it like a regular toy. But
Exactly, that's what it was basically.
it was only like a few years ago where I'm like watching YouTube videos of people using the gyromite robot, and I'm like, dude, this is really freaking cool. Like, there's no way I was going to make that work at 4. Have you seen the gyromite robot? You've seen it though before, right?
Oh no, I know exactly what you're looking like, but I
Yeah.
never had one, so I never got to like learn how to use it properly. But I remember what exactly what it looks like.
Yeah. I don't know. I think one of my favorite games in Nintendo was I know this is Dirt Strike podcast. Sorry guys, but you know it's my podcast, so we'll talk about whatever we want.
Yeah, at least
But
try to
we
keep
will
it
get to Third Strike
captivated.
soon. But when you said Commando, I ultimately like I automatically thought Captain Commando. That game is so freaking good. Captain
And you
Commando.
know what,
Oh my
like
god.
that game like was never on my radar until like seeing Marvel 2, and I like, oh, what's this character from? And then I
Oh
went and
no, man.
looked it up afterwards. But like, yeah, that was not part of my like. I had a lot of like just different platformers, or like I liked
Uh-huh.
like weird games. Like Hogan's Alley was a light gun game where you like basically used the little you know how like in police training things they had like the guys pop up and then
Yeah.
you shoot them and it spins. It was like that.
Uh-huh.
So like that was a game I put way too many hours into as a kid.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I played a lot of like some of the more obscure games and also like just some of the classics. Like still to this day, I love playing Ducktales. I was super psyched when they did the HD remaster of it. And then Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, like that was a hard platformer back in the day.
Yeah. And so how about fighting games though? Like how did you start getting into fighting games?
I mean, literally, like if you want to take it that far back, it was Karate Champ because I actually
Uh-huh.
remember going to Yogi Bear Campground in Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and my mom played Karate Champ with me in the arcade that they had at the campground.
And are you
Um,
originally from Wisconsin?
no, it was just we were on like that's Wisconsin is Illinois' campground. We just go there for vacations and you go fishing there because fishing in Illinois is kind of crappy.
Oh, okay.
But we no, we would just go up there on vacation and like they had it and my mom played Karate Champ with me, and then like I remember the first time I ever played Super Street Fighter 2, not
Mhm.
Turbo but Super with just the new challengers in it. That was on a family vacation to Florida when I was like 9.
Mhm.
I had the home version of so I had the Sega Genesis version. I never had an SNES as a kid, so I had the home version of Hyper Fighting on Sega, which was like that special championship edition is
Yeah,
what they
special
called it,
championship
where you can
edition.
actually set the rules between champion and Hyper Fighting. But that, and I had the 6-button controller that would be the prototype for the Saturn pad.
Mhm.
And then, but we only had one. So my little brother and I, who's 4 years younger than me, so I was 9, he was like 5, going on 6, and we'd always argue over who got the 6-button controller. So the person that didn't get the 6-button controller played boxer because you used to be able to switch between punches and kicks by
Uh-huh.
pressing start. But we were young, we didn't know any better. We noticed like only a little bit of difference, so you just play boxer because he just all punched anyway.
Mhm.
So that was like definitely put many hours into that. Like I recorded the Street Fighter movie off of pay-per-view when it first aired on pay-per-view, so I had that bootleg videotape there. Played a ton of Street Fighter 2 on Genesis, and then like every other fighting game, like that was like the era of Blockbuster. So we would rent like Eternal Champions, anything you get, different Fatal Fury games, all that. So like any fighting game that we get our hands on, because like that was just everybody made one, and you didn't know what was good and what wasn't, because it's like between 1994 and like 1995, there was probably a dozen and a half like decent fighting games that came out all at the same time.
And so I guess you got introduced to fighting games through console
Yes.
as opposed
I mean,
to
I played. There were arcades. So okay, I remember there's a by my like the first house that my family lived in was, or technically the second. There was a like it was like a family diner place. It was either called Sirloin Stockade or the Ground Round, but they had a tabletop version of like Sancho 2,
Mhm.
and so I played that on an arcade cab before I played any like Capcom games on an arcade cab.
Okay.
So, but yeah, home stuff was definitely there, and then like that trip to Florida where I played New Challengers for the first time, that was on a cab. And there were like arcade cabs and arcades sprinkled around Chicago, but like I didn't have one super close. But like you go to the local mall, there'd be one there, but it wasn't close enough to where it's like a 9, 10-year-old kid, my mom would let me ride my bike out there or anything like that. It was like crossing major roads and all that. So it was a lot of home console stuff, and then like we got taken to arcades as like a treat kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So when did you start sort of competing, or when did you start, or when was your first sort of awareness that there was this thing called the FGC, this sort of fighting game competitive scene type entity.
Well, I know exactly what it was, and I gotta
Okay.
give shout outs to my friend Mike DeBonis, goes by Flexo. We He was working at a GameStop in Champaign, Illinois when I was going to school down there, University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana.
Hmm.
Um, and I got a job at GameStop because I just needed a job. I was in college, whatever. I like video games. Let's go. And he's
Hmm.
like, "Oh, did you ever play Street Fighter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did as a kid, of course. Like, who hasn't?"
Hmm.
And that was probably like the year after, so like maybe only like 6 months after Anniversary Collection came out. And so he's like, "Here, go home and start playing this." So I actually was like, I didn't even have a PS2 at the time, and I called my mom. I was like, "Ma, my first paycheck, you mind if I use it to buy a PS2?" It's like, "Well, I'm technically working. I should know about games." So like, I got that. He went to the Sears down further in the mall, found me a deal on those the T5 Hori sticks, the Tekken 5 packaged ones.
Hmm.
He found me a Japanese arcade stick right off the bat. It's like, so it was to have been like summer 2006. I'm like, well, I'm all kitted out, might as well learn. And so I used to play like, so if, I don't know if you know, Seth Killian went to UIUC back in the day too.
Hmm.
Like he was, so the generation after him, like some of the guys that I learned to play fighting games with used to play with him when he was there.
Okay.
So like that whole UIUC scene. So that was my friend Mike, Jerry Chang, who goes by Knives, is a Guilty Gear player. Like he's out in California now. Like these are people like if you're from the Midwest, you kind of know them here or there, or like Humbag.
I,
You
I've
know of Humbag?
Yeah, I know of him. But I've actually probably met him because I'm originally from SoCal, but I've forgotten so many people.
Well, Humbag's a Champagne local, like, and he actually works at Volition Studios right now. But he was the best guy in our group basically for
Hmm.
playing Third Strike, and probably still could mop the floor with me to this day. He always insists that he's rusty, but like that rust gets shaken off really quick with him. But like he's like one of the really good player for like the Central Illinois area and like just in Greater Midwest. He's somebody that like if you're from the Midwest, you know who Humbag is, and like he's keeps up with games. He plays a lot of different games, really high level. But like that was the crew back in the day,
Hmm.
which like that grew like with the inception of Street Fighter 4. Like we were originally all playing Third Strike together,
Hmm.
and I actually got like really interested with like HDR and like played Third Strike as well at the same time. And then 4 came in, and like that brought in a bunch of new blood.
Hmm. And so I guess from what you're saying, you got into Third Strike probably around the early 2000s, maybe then, or
Mid, I would say like because I remember the IGN that came out when
uh-huh.
they announced Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and I remember like wishing I could get my hands on it, but I didn't have a Dreamcast or anything like that. I remember flipping through the I'm like, oh, this Oro character looks so fucking cool. Like, oops, oh wait, PG-13 or no?
Yeah, no, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, I didn't want to go too far off the
No,
deep
no.
end on that, but yeah, I'm like these characters look so neat. Like I really want to play them,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, not having a Dreamcast, which was like the first console it came out on, it's like yeah, I really didn't have access to it until it came out in an Anniversary Collection, and that's when like it just kind of like the perfect storm. Like I was in college, there was a scene already established. Anniversary Collection had Hyper Street Fighter 2, and it had Third Strike on it. I'm like, well, I'm set, and it's just like that. From that point on, it's like I've never really been out of it. It's just been a part of my life, and it's just like yeah, that was probably the big ones. Like so, probably summer of 2006, maybe a little earlier than that, maybe like, but that's right about when it came in.
Hmm. And by the way,
So
I never thought that PS2 port was that bad.
it's not. I mean, it's fast,
Yeah.
but it's not. I mean, hit confirms are. It's kind of like playing on FIK, where a hit confirm is not really a hit confirm. It's kind of like it's more of a reactive punish, and you commit to it,
Hmm.
but you can't like. But then there's things that people debate, like whether you can truly confirm like Ken low forward. This is like in that like target combos are even kind of like, but it's a solid port. It's totally playable.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not ideal, and I think OE is actually a better port to practice with.
Hmm.
But I don't think that PS2 port was bad at all.
Hmm. And so let's sort of fast forward a little bit. Well, let's talk a little bit about just your game. So, obviously you play a lot of different old man games. You don't just play Third Strike. But in terms of Third
I,
Strike, who's your main?
well, do you want to go currently?
Well, who did you start out with?
My first main was Dudley,
Okay.
and then I realized that I am way too turtly of a player to play Dudley properly, and so that realized I stuck with that for a while. And there
Uh-huh.
was a period where I was playing more HDR ST, and I wasn't playing much Third Strike, so I would just kind of like come back and dabble with characters as they look cool. And then it was kind of like Dudley was always the background main, and I played a lot of Yuri and Dudley matches with my friends over the years. And then I'm like, I just realized like the more I play games, the more I realize like I'm not a rushdown player in the slightest. And I'm a Honda player in SD, so I developed an affinity for simple combos,
Huh?
high damage, command grabs.
Hmm.
So I really actually started getting back into the scene again when I started playing at Logan, which was my birthday in 2015.
Hmm.
And I'm like, Q always looked cool. Let me play Q. And then Quentin, who you know, he's like, don't do that to yourself. Don't. And then he literally kind of beat it out of me. And then I started playing Ken on the regular. And now I'm sitting on Denjin Ryu, is where I've ended up.
Hmm. Well,
So it's.
just from
Oh,
what
go ahead.
just from what you described, how come you never gravitated towards Alex?
There's, like, Alex has got a lot of love, but, like, he just felt awkward to me. And it's weird, because, like, yeah, I mean, I play charge characters. He's got a command grab, sorta. And, like, they definitely do, like, they work properly. It's just, I don't know. It was just like sometimes you don't want to step on other people's toes because there's a fair amount of like competent Alex players in Chicago too,
Uh-huh.
but like yeah, he just never like super stuck with me. I don't know why. And then so the reason why I ended up settling on Denjin Ryu for the time, like I've been playing him pretty consistently for the last like 4 or 5 months,
Hmm.
is I kind of like that there's 3 stages of the character. So you've got the build up to Denjin, when you have Denjin, and post Denjin, right?
Okay.
And we all know what I'm trying to do. We all know what you're going for. If you're playing Denjin Ryu, it's very obvious
Yeah.
this is the game plan. So you know what I'm trying to do. I know what I'm trying to do. You still got to stop me anyway. And so like that whole beginning of the round, it's like, well, you're basically having to like outfootsie people, outplay people to get the Denjin. And it's like it is a set play kind of thing, but you have to outplay somebody all the way up to that point.
Hmm.
And then whether the Denjin lands or not, then it's like, oh, well, this is either a brand new round in the middle of a round, or this is just icing on the cake kind of thing. So
Hmm.
I like that it forces you to somebody knows what your intentions are, and you still have to outplay them. And so that's where like those victories become really satisfying, and I kind of enjoy it. And just like I don't know, it's just like having really solid normals and stuff like that. That's one of the other things I really enjoy about him is that like
Hmm.
I've played so much ST over the years that having just good strong normals and like his combos are really simple. Like I don't have to do. I don't like characters that have like power up modes. So I don't like stuff like Gene Jin and stuff like that. So it's definitely having just like that basic follow up combo. It's like, oh, works on everybody. Once you get the post stun combo, you do the same thing. It's like, okay, I don't have to keep all that in memory. It's just like I play my game. I concentrate on footsies. I get the knockdown. I get the Denjin follow up, and then if I miss, the round starts over.
Well, since you're a Honda player, I would really suggest that you pick up Alex, because when I think about the way Honda is played, I mean Alex is kind of the same way. Um,
And I got a
and
couple
I
of
don't think Q sucks. I don't think Q sucks at all.
I
Um,
think he's incredibly fun, but like you really like you experience like when you get access to good normals, like good third strike normals, you're like, oh yeah, because there's some buttons of Qs I love, but it's like yeah, a couple of things here or there, and he would be a lovely character. And like I still do pop him out from time to time, but and let me get this out of the way right now. I am a mediocre third strike player at best. I don't want to say that there's anything incredible about my play. Like I'm mediocre at best because like when you play somebody, it's one of those games where it becomes demonstrated very quickly when people are better than you. I'm like, I don't need to further weigh myself down. Q comes out, but Q comes out when I'm really trying to just have fun and enjoy the game.
mhm.
Um, Ryu comes out and Ken comes out when it's like, oh, this is now serious business.
Mhm.
But like everybody has a pocket Ken. Everybody knows how to fight Ken to a certain degree. But even still, Ken being Ken, he can still kind of do things. So no, I don't think Q is an unplayable character. But what I like about him is that he actually taught me how to be a bit more defensive
Mhm.
and really taught me to have to use parry to do punishes.
Mhm.
Because like if you just watch Kuroto play, he's down backing so much and then looking for that one parry, and it's like, oh, okay, now this match flips.
Mhm. Yeah, it's third strike is, I think, definitely you get your most mileage and success by playing a more defensive game. I mean, that's something
Yeah,
that I totally noticed when I was in Japan. Everyone is just super safe. Um, a lot of the really top players, they have a super like quote unquote lame style. I guess that's what the Westerners would call it, super lame style. But I've said this
in
in
my book,
other, yeah,
it's hip to be lame, man. It's hip to be
it
lame.
is.
Down back all day.
And I've said this in other podcasts, but I feel like the best word to describe the way the Japanese play Third Strike is efficient. No wasted
No
motion.
wasted
And,
movement.
and and I mention that because that's really the key to being successful with a character like Q. You can't press any more buttons than you have to. You have to get your three taunts in. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
the priority. And you have to learn you have to learn all of the weird sort of setups to get the three taunts. And so I think, I don't want to I hate, saying that certain characters suck because I think the more character diversity you have in a community, the better everyone gets. You know.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing is like I don't think there's well, I always discourage people from playing Sean. I always do that.
Huh?
But he's not unplayable either. Like everybody
No.
in like because of the way the mechanics in 3S work out, like it really does give the better player and the person that outplays the other one a chance to do whatever they want with whatever character.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how easy is that for you to do? So, but I'm like, yeah, it's definitely, and one of the things I love most about the game is the character variety and how people can make characters work. And like, well, yourself as an example right there. It's like you play a character that's in the like low mid tier, but it's just like he's incredibly fun to watch. And like we have a lot of really good players. And like at some point, I'm gonna have to start rattling off all these guys that we have that they play a few different characters extremely well. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, yeah, we do actually have the character variety. And like that's even people joking around, and they have competent Necros. We have good Alexes. We have all these things like floating around and like better than competent. Like they run train on the rest of us when we're trying our best.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point I'll have to like when we get to talking about Logan, I'll talk about the guys that we're playing with and like some of their backgrounds are really weird. Like we've got guys that played at UFO, Chinatown Fair, and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So we'll get there when we get there.
Well, actually, we might as well start talking about it now. So, let's talk a little bit about your home or your home arcade, if you will. So basically, the place that all the Third Strike players kind of come together in Chicago is Logan Arcade, right? So tell us a little bit
Yep.
about Logan Arcade, and exactly what is Logan Arcade like, for somebody who's never been to Logan, let alone to Chicago, let alone Logan.
It is like exactly what you would want in a large city with a decent public transit system and Uber.
Uh-huh.
Because it is Logan Square is a very centrally located neighborhood in
Uh-huh.
Chicago, and so it became a great place for everybody to get together. Because there's other barcades in Chicago, but Logan has the perfect storm of being in the middle of everything,
Mm-hmm.
people that care about the games and care about getting good games in. Like they have shoot 'em ups, they have pinball machines, they have all the good classic ones. Because we have other arcades around that like they have everything, but they don't have like the right versions of things, or like they'll like so if you go to Galloping Ghost, they have Third Strike there, but it's in an American cab crammed in. It's not ideal for actual gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Logan has like a love for the games and an understanding. So they're not from the collector's perspective, they're from the player's perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that makes the biggest deal. So that is the place where it's like, oh, we have Third Strike in a candy cab. That is something we really need. There's another arcade that has that. And I don't want to disparage their name, but it's in Lakeview, and they had a Third Strike in an Astro City, and it never worked. Buttons were jacked up, sticks were no good. It was unplayable most of the time, and it was on the north side, and it was just like not close to it. Logan Arcade, we got people that come from Rogers Park all the way down to Pilsen, which is head to toe in the city, and it's right smack down in the middle. I used to be like 3 miles away. Now I'm out in the boonies. I'm like as far west side as you can possibly consider because I'm 70 miles away, and I still trek my ass in to go play there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect balance of centrally located people that really care about the games. The atmosphere is great. It's like it's a barcade that's focused around that, so there's no cover fee. You pay in quarters, which that's one of those things that people may like get a little bit like weirded out by, but I think you play differently if you got to throw a quarter down every time and you want to play. It's now costing you money to lose every single time you lose, and I think that does inspire people to try to play their best on a regular basis. Like you got a quarter up, you got to put a quarter in line, and you have to win if you want to stay on the cap. And if you're good enough, you can go into the arcade and spend a quarter, and you're set. And that's a really big difference. Where like a lot of the other arcades are, some of them are token based, and then some of them are free play with a cover fee. And it's like when you got a quarter up every time, it changes your ambitions. It changes how serious you play. It's like every time there's money on the line, even though it's like death by 1,000 stings. it's still important to have that. But also the fact that Zespi, the owner of Logan, is really receptive to our needs. So when we say something's broken, they have a logbook. It's usually fixed within a couple days. They're just like we we'll beg and we'll plead for certain other things. Like, oh, okay, so like they got all these new candy cabs recently. They threw JoJo's in one. They threw ST in one, which I'm emphatically happy about. So like last Sunday, that's all I did is I basically sat down. I think I played like 3 to 5 matches of 3S, and I just played ST in the candy cab. And they shuffle things around. They mix games up. They have like an Alpha 2 board that they throw in there. It's just like they have all the good games. They have them right. The next thing is CVS 2 if we get our way. So it's just like it's people that understand. They're not in it for just nostalgia. They're not in it for collector's sake. They're in it for people that really enjoy playing games, and they understand that about us, and they're receptive to it, and that's what makes it all the more welcoming to do.
So just to clarify, the cabinet at Logan, it's a quarter to play.
It's a quarter to play.
Oh wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah. We have to throw down money every time, so you can get by cheap if you're good, and it costs you a little bit more. And so I mean, we'll have a group of like 15 people just hovered around that Astro City with 3S in it, and you got to put a quarter up, and it's your time to shine, and it's game on, man.
Okay. Now,
so
what?
Oh, go ahead.
How often do you run like actual tournaments there?
Those have been too sparse, and it's kind of it's difficult because like we have people that work in like the restaurant industry, so they work on weekends. We like to get a regular thing. Usually the biggest turnouts for an actual like bracket running thing are we do like birthday tourneys. Like that's like the one thing that everybody will show up for somebody's birthday, and we can run a bracket then. Sundays we just tried one this past Sunday and it didn't work out so great. There are a lot of mitigating factors on that one. So we've done a couple small tourneys here and there. We've done a couple others like Sunday ones that have done it, but I think it's really hard because of people's schedules and stuff to get everybody there at the same place at the same time. Plus, it's not like it's a dedicated venue for that. The fact that it's a fully functioning bar. It's an arcade that has patrons that are there for games like Killer Queen, games like pinball games, and all that. Like it is a legit fully functioning thing. So if we like on Friday nights at 9 is when we all get together to come play and just like it's kind of like poker night with your friends. Like that's when everybody shows up. That's when everybody throws down. We play from about like some people get there earlier, but we go until the arcade closes at 2 a.m. So it's like that's the main get together night. But like it'd be impossible to try and run brackets that. Plus, like if you have 15, 20 people on one setup, it's a little bit difficult because it's limited that way. Now that being said, we've started to gather super guns in Chicago, where I have a super gun and I have a CPS3 board and Third Strike. I have a weird version of Third Strike, but it plays totally legit. I have the Asian no CD version, which if you've never played it,
the censored version, the censored version. Well, because I don't. The only difference I see with that version is certain voices are
sound
effect.
Yeah. So everything gameplay wise, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But like instead of saying like Hadouken, Ken just kind of grunts. Like there's all sorts of weird sound things that are off, but like the gameplay is 100% legit. So now we got Mike Berman, Boost, who is also one of our big helpers. Like he's my when I run tournaments, like he's my bracket runner guy. Like he's who I can count on for that. He just got his CPS3 Darksoft modded, and then Jose Tough Gnarl. We have two Jose's. We have Big Jose Part 2. Who's an Ibuki player that if you're in the Midwest, you know him as the Ibuki in the Midwest. And then we have Little Jose, which is Tough Gnarl, and like he just got himself a CPS. He got his super gun and his CPS3. He just needs to get a Darksoft mod. So we'll have 3 fully functioning CPS3 boards plus the Logan arcade setup. So right now we're just on the cusp of being primed to be able to have like 3 to 4 setups, and if we can arrange something with Logan where we can get, these setups on a Sunday kind of thing, we can just plug them in and run with it. And so we're right on the cusp. It's like a part of what I've been doing is helping people find hardware, helping people work those things out, like getting things a little bit more organized. And like from that hardware perspective where it's like, oh, well, we got 1 super gun, 2 consoles, some on an LCD, some on a CRT. It's like, I'm just trying to get that consolidated towards like there's a uniformity. We have that. And we're just like right there about to have it. And so like this next like 6 months is going to be when we actually blow up the biggest, I think. We've just got everybody's primed, everybody's ready for it. we're just about to have all the hardware we need and then some, and really be able to go in hard and get organized and get events running on the regular. And we're really good about doing like house sessions and stuff. Like people will come out by me and they'll play. We'll play till 5 in the morning. They'll stay the night, whatever. And then little Jose's been hosting stuff at his place, which runs all night. And thank you to his girlfriend for putting up with us. But like those have been really good, and the house sessions have been great. And it's not just 3S; it's all old man games. It's ST, it's CVS2, it's MVC2. Like it's just like we're this whole little. It's a tight knit scene, but it's a very open scene. So like if we can get more bodies in the room, we'll get more bodies in the room. And so I would say, if you incorporate everybody, it's probably 20 to 25 people solid that are really excited. And now we're getting converts is the other thing too. So we're having the dedicated ST guys like my friend Rashad, ST through and through. Like he's that guy. Like those the Pelicans in or the Seagulls in Finding Nemo. Mine. Anytime, dude. That guy pops us up. ST. He's even starting to play 3S now because it's like, you know what? It's a fun game. Other guys are doing it. Like people are respect. Like he's getting on board. It's like the converts are happening. New blood comes in. Like 3S is actually the number one draw that gets new people in, but like that puts people on other games. And like our old man game status is just blowing up bit by bit. And like I've been wanting to learn CVS2 for the longest time, and I'm finally getting to do that because I got people like Geronimo teach me how to play a CVS2, and like he's a big Marvel guy himself. So like it's all come together. Like in the last 2 years, the scene has gotten so much better. And Logan was the impetus for it because it gave everybody a place to start. And now it's just our network, and like we got a hub, and now the spokes are there. And like then we get the rim, and we get everybody else in, and it's just a really great bunch of like, it's a great scene because like people are so excited about playing. They're so inviting. They're so welcoming, but also they're gonna beat into the dirt if they can. Like that's the thing. It's like there's no slouching, but like if you want to learn, we'll teach you. We respect you. Just come to play and play real hard.
Okay. Well, I actually want to talk about that. It's time to take our first break. But when we come back, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your player base at Logan, because you had said something really interesting earlier in the podcast about how you have a lot of diverse players from diverse backgrounds. That come from diverse places. Because I think something you said before the podcast came on is Chicago's like any kind of major city like New York, right? Like there's a lot of transplants that come. And so I definitely want to talk a little bit more about the player base in Chicago, and I also want to talk a little bit about your pursuit in collecting hardware and amassing hardware, because I think that's been something that's pretty interesting, in terms
It's
of
interesting, but man,
it's rough.
don't get yourself do yourself the favor. Don't get into that pit,
Yeah.
but do because it's really rewarding when you see it all come together.
Uh-huh.
But man, it's a whole different chore. But yeah, absolutely. So I'll see you in a couple.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and take a break. For it might be a little bit longer. I'm noticing that there's some frame drops, so I may have to stop the stream. Hopefully I don't have to. But we'll be back in about 3 minutes or so. And
Okay.
stick around, guys, and we'll be back with more with Bathtub Leviathan, aka Brian. All right, guys, welcome back to the Mutant Experience podcast. Tonight, my guest is Brian, aka Bathtub Leviathan from the Chicago area, and we're just gonna go ahead and pick back up where we left off before the break. And so, Brian, I wanted you to talk to us a little bit more about your player base, your Third Strike player base over in Chicago. You had mentioned that Chicago, like any other big city, is filled with transports. And tell us a little bit about your player base. Where are the players from, and are there is there like a lot of are there a lot of players that know what they're doing? Are they players that play Third Strike from other places? What's the mix there?
I it it's a hot mess of a blend. So like Quentin personally, like he actually came from well, I think he was born in Atlanta, lived in North Carolina for a while, and
Uh-huh.
then he came to Chicago, and like he kind of was there at the same time, like the like really when the Logan scene started coming together, and he was implemental to it.
Hmm.
And then he went and had to go leave us to make that paper in Salt Lake City. So that actually was a big loss, and like it's forced a couple other people to step up because not only was he a great organizer, he's a very good player. When he doesn't play with his food, yes, I called you out on that, Quentin. You have to own that. So he's a Makoto player that sometimes tried to show people up with with their own characters, and he's messed up and done Ken mirror matches and ate some stuff. But no, always pick your real stuff in tournament, unless like you pick a sub character if you really think you're gonna win, but don't mess around. So Quentin was a great influence, and like he's somebody that like we're totally from different backgrounds, but like we have a similar approach to things. And he was just somebody to talk game with, and like he just was really into getting things organized, and on top of being a good player, which getting that combination is the bull. Is like the hard thing to do. Is like I'm a solid to mediocre player, but I'm really good at getting people excited about stuff.
Hmm.
Then we have people like Adam Hernandez, goes by Shady, or Dirt Master, depending on what you're getting on. He is OG is all get out. Like he used to compete at like 2i tournaments. Like he would travel and go to like 2i tournaments in New York back in the day.
Hmm.
So second impact stuff, but like he is also a Makoto main. Supposedly, he doesn't really bring her out. This man has run 40 win streaks on us with Q. It's dirty. Like he is the guy. Like he's just that the grandmaster. He's the Oro of the scene, where it's like he's only slightly older than me, but like dude just knows how to play the game. Like you could make him pick random select, and he'll do some nasty stuff to you with any character, any super. Like he is just like that fountain of knowledge that you have to respect. Like the goal is, if he's there that night, is to kick him off the machine. That's like your number one goal. It's really hard because we have so many like great players, and we have so many like up and coming players too. So like I'm trying not to forget anybody, and I'm sorry guys if I do. I will make up for it some way or another. But other things is part two. Big Jose, great Ibuki player, also very good at other characters. Uh, let's see. We got Big Red, who's like he's kind of like he jumps all over the place, but he's been in Japan. He's played. He's like one of the less known. Carrie is a New York player. We've had just other people like Al is kind of a newer guy to come in, but he used to play at Arcade UFO back in the day,
Okay.
and he's giving us the chun beatings we've been needing. So like there's just a wealth of those, and I gotta say also like Little Jose, I gotta get in before I forget him because he's an Elena player and he puts in work with that girl, and he has other characters, but like he is like that. He's our low tier hero, but like really does like he has a love for the game like nobody else. And then Berman for playing Remy as long as you did. Very proud of you. Thank you for going to Ken. All right.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'd like more Remy mains. It's
I love Remy. Like I actually discovered it like because I didn't have two sticks in the house, so I would play my roommates, and I'd use Remy because it's the only character I can play on a pad halfway confidently.
uh
And no, I kind of developed an affinity for him. But we got, and I know I'm leaving out like half a dozen people easily on these shoutouts kind of thing, and maybe people will come up as I mentioned it, but we just have people from like like I said, Texas. There's just transplants that are coming from guy moved back from Hawaii, people that are from the Midwest originally, and they came back knowing about Third Strike, and they found Logan.
mm.
Like, I'm just one of those people, like, I've lived all over Illinois. I've moved 12 times in 12 years, and it's like, oh, finally, I got, like, this hub again. So there's a lot of really good players. Like, there's definitely clear echelons of, like, people like Adam are on the top tier. Carrie is very high up there. Quentin was very high up there. Like, those are the guys to beat.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and, like, We got a great hero is a great Q player. So it's just like there's so many people that you have to give a lot of respect to. It's like it's just on any given night you don't know who you're going to run into, so you don't know the matchups you're going to find. The character variety is there. It's fantastic for that. Like where nobody's afraid to just experiment and like put a quarter down and try some goofy stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not a math professor, but it seemed like you rattled off like at least like 7 or 8 names just there, and
Oh
so
yeah,
it seems like it definitely seems like a regular tournament scene could sort of develop at Logan.
and yeah, I mean if we could all get there at the same time, because there's easily another like I would say of dedicated regular players that are skilled enough to like do well in any tournament, like go say 3-2. There's probably 16 to 20 people.
Wow.
Like it's there. It's just a matter of having everybody. Like I said, people work in the restaurant industry. People work in like they can't always. They work at grocery stores or whatever. They're stuck working on weekends and they can't make it out. They got to I got to be up for work at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Can't come out at Friday at 9 and stay up till 2 a.m. It's like it's not something you get to do on the regular. But the talent base is there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have a lot of guys that don't travel. Like this is where I start railing into people because I'm like, look, you're not coming to a local that I offered you a ride to, this, that, and the other thing. And so Frosty Faustings was an interesting one because like there's some people that finally came out and like Adam was not calling you out Adam for real, but like he was my favorite to win the tournament. And of all places, shout outs to Nebraska. Nebraska can play third strike. Those dudes know what they're doing. Jamar, Blood Urian, he's not just an online player.
Well,
he's there in real life.
They've been playing long enough.
Well, I mean,
they've been playing long before we were.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, they're very real. And like I remember, like the first time my first tournament was Frosty Faustings 2, and I got bodied by a Nebraska Necro player that I'd never heard of before. So like they're very real. And I'm forgetting one more Nebraska player. Like they played. So out of I think top 4, 3 of them were Nebraska players, and the other one was Chris G.
Yeah, it was us. I believe Simon got second. So
go.
last frosting, I think Chris G was first. Simon was second. Jamar was third, and then Grimlock was fourth.
Yeah, and I'm kind of mad because.
And I don't think Eat went to Frosty Faustings. I don't think Eat.
What's that?
Eat didn't go to Frosty. Eat?
No, he did not.
Okay.
No, and Eat's another. He came to Combo Breaker last year, and that's something I'm looking forward to is seeing again at Combo Breaker because that's just a good natured like that's another guy that's just like positive and gets things going. So like he was a nice guy to meet. He went to the Frosty before that, but I didn't see him at this one.
Yeah.
I'm a little like salty because Jamar I played him, and I think he might have been the person that knocked me out or put me in loser. I can't remember which one he was in that order at this point. And I was doing well, and I missed all my dungeon setups on him. And, like, when you miss dungeon setups fighting Chun, life's not going your way.
Yeah.
And that was my fault because I was playing on 360 setup casuals before, and when I switched back to the Super Gun, I was rushing my inputs because arcade runs a little bit slower. And so I was rushing my dungeon setups, and I was like, oh, I get jab fireball into nothing. Such is life. Because, like, I was doing good in the footsies game, but that one's going to stick with me, and that means practice time. More and more practice time.
I kind of want to talk about, we might as well get into this now because, you had said, you had told everyone that you're involved in other scenes but most particularly, you're heavily involved in the ST scene.
Indeed.
And so, the Super Turbo scene has sort of seen a bit of a resurgence, although I think that's kind of a misnomer because I don't know if ST really went into a lull. I mean, we had, you guys had the Tournament of Legends in 2012 and 2013, and then I guess there was like a year or so where things weren't really happening.
It was in limbo, and also it wasn't attracting a lot of new players at the time, and I think that's the difference. It's like Third Strike is a very pretty game, and so it makes it very attractive. And it gets people to want to play it because it's beautifully animated, it's flashy, movement feels really free, where it's like something like ST is rigid, it looks a little bit dated, and trust me, I love the way it looks, but like to fresh eyes, it's not the most attractive game. And it feels like stiff and limiting, and when you lose so bad. You get thrown, you lose a third of your life. Whereas, like, that's the thing is, like, ST for a while wasn't really attracting new blood.
Mhm.
And so it'd be like, yeah, we had stuff, and that was kind of like old heads, like, getting back into it, but there wasn't a lot of new people coming in. Mind you, the 3 best ST players in Chicago right now are all, like, 25 and under, which is terrifying to me, because that means, like, about, like, 8 more years I could have been playing this game, and they body me on a regular basis, too. So it's an interesting dynamic there. It's like, it's back. It's a renaissance in the sense that it's bringing in new players that are in their teens and 20s, and because like the hardware itself became more practical to bring out, and you don't have those arguments about how to play the game properly anymore, or you don't like HDR has gone into the realms of time, for good or for bad, whatever your opinions of it are. It's one of those where it's like, now we've got, this is the game we play, and it's attracting new people because there's just a lot of people working hard for it. And if you work hard for your game and you drum up the influence, you can make things happen. So that, like, for instance, last Combo Breaker, I took the marquee off my arcade cabinet and walked around Combo Breaker holding that above my head. I made 7 laps around the ballroom. I got 8 people to sign up for a third strike at Combo Breaker just by walking up, because they didn't know it was there otherwise.
And just kind of to your point, Brian, you're sort of in the trenches with the ST scene, and
Yeah.
you've been helping out with the Third Strike scene. What is the Third Strike scene not doing that the ST scene is doing? I don't know how
Getting
else to.
asses
I don't know
off
how else to.
online.
I don't know how else to ask that question. It's a very diplomatic form of asking that question, but
I'm not one that's afraid to be undiplomatic. So yeah, it's getting your ass off the internet, and like Fightcade's great, but you have to go out and, like, if you want a scene to grow and a scene to thrive and to really make a community out of it, you have to get off your chair, out of your house, into a place. It doesn't have to be an arcade. You can use whatever setup you can. And like, I've made posts on Third Strike Junkies and this or that. I'm like, here's like a ranking of setups. Here's how you can do it. You can go walk out in the street and pick up CRT. You can hook an Xbox up or a PS3 up to that CRT. You bring it to your locals and you get people interested. Like, that's the thing you gotta do, is you gotta get out your house and off the internet and play people in real life. Because you know what? It's so much better. Because the thing about online play, like, yeah, it's great for a matchup experience, and not even talking about the technical details of the faults of emulation or this or that. I'm talking about, like, it. You learn so much more sitting next to a person, because when you gotta sit there and type something out on a joystick or a pad, and like, hey, good match, what did you do right there? It's like someone, it's doing Morse code at that point. If you can look at somebody, it's like, did you do this here? I did this here. Yes, okay, we covered that base. You learn so much more in a fraction of the time, and you're actually convening and learning. It's like, oh, so here in this situation, you shouldn't be doing that. Or you get real-time feedback, and it's like, it's not feedback where it's just smack talking. It's legitimate. It's like, oh, yeah, so in this situation, I notice you always do this. Now you can just stop doing that, and this instead back up and do this. There's so much more communication, and there's so much more education that comes from sitting down and learning a fighting game sitting next to a person. And that's the best thing you do. Find somebody that knows the game that you want to play and really just sit down and run through it. Like, when I get new players, and like, that's the thing, like, I'm in the middle of the road. When new people come into the scene and really don't know how to play, like, there's this guy Chase, like, he was a rhythm game player, and he was like, oh, I want to learn how to play. It's like, I sit you down and I walk you through the buttons. It's like, this is jab. This is what jab can do. Like, this is what jump jab does. This is what close jab does. Can you super cancel it? Can you special cancel it? And just give them, like, the ins and outs of the game. Like, you can learn more in 2 hours than you can in playing 3 weeks online every day for 4 hours a day, because you're getting proper feedback into it. And that's what I encourage. It's like, you learn so much more just sitting down next to somebody that, even at a middling level, understands the mechanics of the game and how the game is played. You gain so much more knowledge, and that's hyperbolic time chamber. You're just getting thrown in there. You're put in the blender, and it's like you pick up so much faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. The last bit sort of cut off, guys. Sorry, we're just having some connection difficulties. But so are you suggesting that Third Strike players don't do that. Don't do that enough. Like in terms
What, get out
of
their house?
yeah,
I really will say because like I mean there's examples from like I see it in No Honor Crew, which is like the kind of like the Third Strike junkies of ST, where it's like, oh yeah, nobody plays this game in my area. I'm like, guarantee you, bring it out, put a set out, you're gonna get somebody attracted to it. Like Third Strike is the game where you hear everybody, oh, I love this game, I love this game,
yeah.
I
You know
love this game.
that's the thing that's so maddening to me, Brian. It's like
Precise.
it's like
And this is why I get angry. It's like you love this game so much, just bring it out and play it, and like people will sit down. It happens all the time.
it's because everyone, like for example last year at TFC, and shout outs to Biggie and Larry Shinblanca for giving the Third Strike community that time to shine. But when top eight rolled around, um, Larry was very adamant about putting it in the main room, uh, and there were a lot of players in the main room where that was their first time ever watching competent to high level Third Strike
And
live.
it's amazing.
And and it's like, wow, that's really cool. And I always feel like the Third Strike community needs to figure out a way to attract new players, kind of like what the ST community is doing. And so clearly, the Third Strike community is not doing something that the ST community is doing. And another thing is, and I guess maybe you can chime in on this, but Third Strike junkies, right? Like, there's
It's rage inducing. Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better, you know, but I
I
definitely
mean, I was born from the bowels of SRK, where like before I even made an account, I lurked for
yeah.
years, and then I made an account, and I like got ground through that GD discussion, those kind of discussions, and like you still see some of those. Like you know what? I think getting parried kind of kills a certain part of your soul to where you become a little bit more jaded.
Uh,
So one of the things that the reason why you're talking to me right now is because that I'm a vocal member and like that inviting person that gets people
mm-hmm.
feeling like, hey, step up, come play. Like that's my role. Like there are people in the Chicago scene that are good for different parts. Like so we've got bracket runners in Berman. We've got, great players in Adam and Carrie and like knowledgeable experienced players. I'm the guy that gets people to sit their ass down and play a game because you know what? For some reason, this beard is just inviting and warm to people, and like people will just sit down and talk to me, like, and that's what it is. Like that, if you notice, like I am the dude that will approach somebody, and be like, hey, yeah, throw down a chord, give it a try. Like, what's it gonna hurt? I'll sit down and play with you. What do you want to know? Like, just be inviting, and like, there's a certain amount of jadedness in 3S players that like it exists in ST too, but like
Well, what do you mean
I
by
think what it is
jadedness?
like that gap in the game is just that there was such a drought in ST for a while of new blood coming in
Uh-huh.
that it's like they forgot how to talk to people, and then they realized it's like, oh well, if we want new people to come in, new ideas to come in, you're gonna have to be a little bit more warm and inviting. And then 3S is kind of like where ST was maybe like I guess like where HDR came in or things like that. Like there's you got to be able to approach people and I'm not saying you got to like sweet talk them or anything like that, but it's like get people excited and like that. You watch me commentating or you watch me in the crowd. I am the hype man. Like I'm going to sit there and express how excited I am to see what's going on screen. Like just make it exciting, and you don't have to force it because the game's exciting on its own. You're not manufacturing this. It's just like make it something and talk to people. Like just sit down and talk to people, and that's what makes them feel like, oh, I want to be a part of this too. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that hard. Like social interaction is something that people are very good at, but you can't do it through a computer screen because that's when you get that trolly evil stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
I was off Facebook for 10 years, and the only reason why I'm back on is because of fighting games and
Mm-hmm.
helping people out with that.
Mm-hmm. And so, when you talk about jadedness, what are you referring to specifically?
It's just well, there's a lot of Third Strike right now has got a lot of regionalism to it. Like, oh, SoCal's this. Like, I mean, this always existed there. Like, that goes back to the having, when you had Evo North, Evo East, Evo West. Like, there's regionalism and exists in fighting games. Like, you got New York Turtle Style, you got, West Coast Rushdown. You like those things exist, but like, you really got to realize, like, we're all in this together. Like,
And
we're
so,
all
yeah. And so, how has ST turned that regionalism into a positive? How has ST turn that regionalism into something that is growing the community as opposed to
It,
keeping it from growing.
instead of flipping it on like talking smack kind of things, it's inviting people out to your events and meeting people and getting to know people. Like that's been fantastic. Like, we've had like I personally went to Canada Cup, my first time out of the country. Took me 32 years to do it. And like just meeting those guys and talking to them, it's like now I've got like a whole bunch more friends. Because that's the thing, is like you find out if you sit down, like, yeah, your enemy's in tournament for that, 3.5 minutes you're playing. And then you're talking to those people. And then you grow those bonds. And like that's what it is. It's like go to places that are outside your area. Don't just go to your locals or your regionals or whatever. Like take a chance. And like I've met the most diverse people, like people I never would have met in any other aspect of life because of fighting games. I always say it's like you can take the most otaku nerd dude and the hoodest mofo you've ever met in your entire life, and a girl that's super into anime and transgender people, and you throw them all in the same room, and the commonality they have is fighting games. And it's like at no other point would these four people come into the same room, and you've all got them talking about the same thing. Like it's going out and interacting with one another. You don't. It doesn't have to be like this team versus this. And sure, you can do like team tournaments. Like, oh, okay, we can do Texas versus Chicago versus New York versus SoCal versus NorCal. You can do that kind of thing, but you all got to talk together either. You can't be insular. Like you really got to like we all love the same game. We all play the same game. So just get out somewhere. Like just go to something new. Engage people that you wouldn't normally engage. Like I'm going to Michigan Masters. I know 2 people for sure that I've met in real life that are at that tournament. Gonna go, and I'm gonna make 5 new friends. And that's what it takes. Like that's how you keep a game vibrant and alive. Because now it's like, oh, well, I know somebody here. I'm gonna go to their tournament. Oh, I can do this and go to that tournament. Oh, well, we can kind of pull this all together into some national thing that we want to do. Like people are really good at gravitating towards one another, especially when they have common interests. So when you sit there and like try to make a regional thing and make it smack talking related, that doesn't get anybody anywhere. It's like you've got to realize like the whole save that stuff for nationals mentality, that it exists, and fine, yeah, keep your good stuff secret, that's fine, but engage with people. You don't need to sit there and be like stonewall towards them. You just you have to engage other people. That's the number one thing.
Hmm. And so, damn it, I lost my train of thought. I wanted to ask a very specific question. Um, so in terms of because I think that's something that El Trouble said in another podcast. Selling people to the community. But Third Strike has such a sordid history. you know, like how do you what do you do? Like
Well, I mean, define what you mean by sordid history, because actually El Trouble is somebody that I became friends with less than a year ago.
Mhm.
I went to California to visit my 2 friends. My Third Strike sensei moved out there for voice acting work, and another buddy of mine, Julian, moved out there for voice acting work, and my cousin lived out there. So I went out there for a vacation. I went to one Wednesday night fights, and I hung out with El Trouble and Tanya, and we've been great friends ever since.
Mhm.
I drove to Canada with them.
Well, I
Like
just
that's all it took was that point. But yeah, I'm trying to get like where is that sordid history? Like,
well, I mean,
what about
Third Strike
where's
has
the major rift in Third Strike?
well, Third Strike has a very unique history, and I mean, it's not the same as ST. Third Strike was never, you know, even though probably the greatest moment in fighting game history is from the game itself. Third Strike was never really accepted.
It was the bastard title of Street Fighter, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and and a lot, and I think a lot of that, is I think a lot of the responsibility falls on both sides. Not
Oh,
just
absolutely.
not just the TOs, not just like for example the evolution and the cannons, but also the players as well. Um, but
I will
also
say,
but
like,
also but
anecdote.
also the history of a board, like a history of a Facebook group like 3S Junkies. You know, when it first got started, you know, it was
Savage.
it was pretty toxic. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
how does a scene kind of shake that off and just kind of
Okay, so there's one thing that I anecdotally have noted this before to other people, because a lot of people that play 3S don't play other fighting games. And
mm-hmm,
like I've
mm,
you can quote me on this, and I've said this many times. It's like 3S isn't necessarily a great Street Fighter game, but it's a great fighting game.
mm,
And I fully believe that. Like it's not Street Fighter in the traditional sense in many ways. Like it's not like Alpha 2, it's not like ST. it's a great fighting game, but it's not necessarily a great Street Fighter game. And like, so there are people that literally play 3S and no other fighting game.
Uh-huh.
Like that exists.
But that's not any different from ST players. There are ST players that play ST but no other fighting game either.
And like I said, it's anecdotal.
Mhm.
But in my experience, there's a lot more ST players that play a lot of different games, and like,
Okay.
especially because like I'm somebody myself, I like to try a lot of different games, and so like, for a gap where I wasn't really playing 3S much, I was playing KOF 13,
Mhm.
and so I met people that played that, and like, I think 3S people, because there's no game like Third Strike. The closest thing is like Yatagras. Like that's the closest thing, but that has its own hiccups and shortcomings there too.
Mhm.
But again, like you mentioned though, like Third Strike junkies, why does it become toxic? Because you're only interfacing with somebody online. You're not. People will say things online that they won't say to somebody's face,
Mhm.
and so that breeds where you have that like, oh, I know this person in real life, so I'm going to side with them because I know they're a good person. But then this other guy on the internet, no, he's no good. He's not part of what I know. And so like, you really do have to get over that. And like I do suggest people play other games. And I'm not saying that people don't. Like there's plenty of Third Strike players that do, but I know a lot of people that like Third Strike is what they play, and that's the only thing they play.
Mhm.
And that can become very insular.
Mhm.
It's the same kind of like bubble that anybody can live in politically, ethnically, whatever. You get inside that bubble. Like I really do think like just hanging out is one of the things that getting off the internet and just introducing, like, if you bring any game to your local gathering, if it's a Street Fighter V and Guilty Gear and KOF 14 gathering, if you just make it cool with the TOs, you bring Third Strike out, I guarantee you people are going to sit down and play.
Yeah.
And that's how you build goodwill, and that's how you build relationships,
Mhm.
because that's what a community is. Because we love the I'm not a big fan of the whole esports thing, and I don't really believe in the FGC, because you know what, the community part is sorely lacking in some respects.
Mhm.
Like this is one of the ones where it's like you build a community by like engaging with other people. You don't like build a community around a game. You build a community around people. That's where it starts. So if you bring something out to an event and you want to actually bring people into Third Strike and not make those things, like you have to engage with people face to face, because people are not vicious in the same way. Like they're going to be much more welcoming if you sit down. I was like, hey, can I get a couple rounds in? Tap somebody on the shoulder. It's like, hey, can we do 2 out of 3s? Let's go. And that's how you build a scene. Because that's what I encourage. Like a lot of people, when they come to Logan, there's one Astro City cab. A lot of these people have never played even on a stick before. You sit them down, you walk through it, you be inviting. Like it's not hard to do. Like it's in our nature, is to be inviting. You can do that. Alcohol certainly helps that, I'm not going to deny. And Logan being a proper barcade certainly helps that too. But you have to really just encourage people, and like that's where I'm talking about the jadedness. Like it's like, no, like, oh, old head gets on the cab, or like, and then like sometimes where you have the winner stays on, that's very intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
But like even small encouragements is what like tips people over and gets people involved, and then you talk to them afterwards. They get up off the machine like, oh, so I noticed you doing this. Like you just have to engage with people, and that's what makes people more apt to come out and be like, oh, I'll do this again. Because there's a guy that specifically I'm thinking of that comes to Logan, and he doesn't practice, and he doesn't, but like every time he does something good or he improves a little bit, I'm like, I make note of that. I'm like, hey, you did this better. Like, have you been playing? I was like, oh no, but I was thinking about what you said last time. Like, you just the smallest gestures can make things expand so much more.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to a point that you made earlier, and I think I think it's a pretty valid point, and I think you're right. Third Strike players, they love the game so much, and I think historically, because they've always felt like they've had to defend it, I think maybe that might. I mean, I don't want to make excuses. Well, I guess I am.
It's not like they're insecure about the game. The game,
but
is
yeah, but I feel like because it never was purely accepted. I think maybe a lot of that I think a lot of that leads to the kind of insularity that you're talking about, because a lot of people who love Third Strike, have had to defend it, all their lives, and have had to defend, why it's a good game and stuff. But I do see your point, the fact that a lot of Third Strike players, not only do they not play other games, but they're also so insistent on, proving that their game, or stressing that Third Strike is better than another game. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, look at the meme is the website Play Third Strike. It's a good game.
Yeah.
No other game has that.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think Third Strike players are insecure. Like, but like they need to be searching for validation. Like, the game stands on its own. The fact that we're still playing it now means the game stands on its own. It has people that love it. It has people that respect. Like, you don't have to get approval for anybody else to play the game that you love. Like, I'm personally somebody that thinks Dive Kick is fun to play, and I enjoy playing that game. So, like, who is anybody else to tell me not? But the thing is, like, when you, like, start tightening up and, like, protecting yourself against the criticism, you're not bringing anybody else in. It's like, just, it's like people, like, I've gotten people on this game, like, my current roommates, they don't like fighting games. They're like, oh, I can't do that. I can't react to this. I can't do that. And I show them Third Strike. I'm like, this game's really cool again. I show them, well, you know what I show them? I show them Makoto's walk animation, where she just creeps up. I'm like, that takes 42 frames of animation. They're like, wow, that's amazing. And now I got them playing 2 times a week. So you just, like, you find the hook. It's like anything else. And, like, I don't like salesmen or marketing people at all, but apparently I am one. I'm just for my hobbies and for the things I love. It's like, if you just find, like, you talk to people, you find it, you engage them. Like, you don't need to be protected. Like, Third Strike doesn't need acceptance for anything else. It's going to be whether people like it or not. And now we have a ton of means to be able to play it. You don't have to worry about suicide batteries as much anymore. You can get Dark Stuff mods and, like, Dark Stuff mods for, because we need to talk about hardware at some point. The Dark Stuff mods for CPS3 are dirt cheap compared to the ones for CPS2. Like, it's very, very feasible. Like, if you know how to look right, you can get an arcade level Third Strike setup for about $700 to $800.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
And just to, I guess kind of to support your point, going back to your point about, Third Strike players being so insular. Last year at NEC, me and Nika KO, we ran this thing called Jamma City, where we tried to do this sort of.
I'm so upset that I didn't get to know. Like, I really, really wanted to.
And to be completely honest, Brian, when I talked to other Third Strike players about this idea, they kind of validated the point that you made. They were like, oh well, why are we bringing in other games? Why aren't we just doing something for Third Strike? And there was a lot of there was a lot of
I mean,
there was a lot of trepidation. But you know what But the interesting thing about Jamma City at NEC is, like, we had 3 team tournaments: ST, Third Strike, and Vampire Savior. Number 1, Third Strike had the least amount of entrants, so that was kind of embarrassing.
That's actually surprising, but Vampire's also doing great work too. So I will commend them for that.
That was a little bit embarrassing. But number 2, speaking of the Vampire Savior community, the Vampire Savior players,
He's also an excellent 3S player and an excellent ST player, because, like, Mighty Mar is just brilliant, and, like, that's somebody that I was leaving out. Like, Mighty Mar is also, like, that's at one of those gurus that you need to have for games. But, like, Vampire, like, they have done great community building, and those are some people that you should talk to.
Yeah, and speaking of the Vampire Savior players, at Jamma City, they entered all 3 tournaments.
Oh yeah,
because
they'll support other games that support them. I entered Vampire at Combo Breaker because you know what? I support the people that support my games. Some of those guys will enter ST, some of them will enter 3S. I entered Vampire because, like, you support my games, I support yours too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a community. That's the thing. It's like, you believe in people, you support your friends. It's like, I'll pop Monster a game that's $5 entry or whatever, even if it's more, because you know what? If you believe in it, then, like, maybe you find out you like it. You never know.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be insular. That's the thing. It's like, reach out, spend an extra $10. Like, that's one of those things. Like, Vampire has done a really good job of that, because it's so much more of a niche game than even Third Strike is.
Oh yeah.
And they've been boned 10 times over the same way. Like, Darkstalkers Resurrection, like, after that, like, there were, Darkstalkers 4 was in the talk and all that. Like, they've just done a great job of not being toxic within themselves, and then they just come out to other people's events. They play their games, and then they bring theirs on the site, and they don't force anybody to play it, but they're like, hey, like, and like, I'll jump on. I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool, and I'll do that, because, like, we have Sam, Typhus, and Mighty Mar are Chicago guys, and so those two, they come out, like, Sam plays an ST all the time. He's also a Honda player as well, and Mighty Mar is, like, one of the best players that we have for, he does, like, Discord breakdowns in any game you play, like, literally any game, because Mighty Mar is brilliant. Like, I've seen that man play a stick, do pad work on the pad and do counter pokes and punishes and stuff, switching between the same controls.
Mm-hmm.
And he will do that for anybody, and he'll break down any game that you want, and he'll show you, he's like, oh, this is what you're doing wrong. Like, that is just fundamental fighting game understanding. But he's a vampire player that plays a booty character in Vampire. But he'll play your other games, and he'll teach you your other games because, he cares about fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes a community. And like that's why I think, first and foremost, that makes Chicago good. It's like, nobody's at each other's throats. We're about, we all get better if we all get better. Like, we all bring each other higher up if we work together.
Yeah, I mean that was sort of the philosophy. That was sort of the premise behind, Jamma City. I mean, I thought, why don't all the old man game scenes come together, and maybe we can help each other out. But I definitely think, when Jamma City happened, and to be honest, it was a little discouraging. From a Third Strike standpoint, because it's just, I don't know. It was just it was, but it was really awesome that the Vampire Savior players, they entered all 3 tournaments.
And that's what's the interesting point is, like, I love the fact that you're able to organize the event that way, and that's something that we're, like, the Midwest and like the Chicago scene in particular, we're not really good at organizing events, like outside of the big ones that we're about to talk to a little bit later. But it's the fact that, like, you guys had the event, and the event was set, and like it was good. Like, you had good rule sets. It was finally tailored. It was like, oh, we're having these games. These are the major important games. But you kind of put the cart before the horse in that respect, where you didn't know if you had the support from the player base. Like, you made an amazing event, but the base support wasn't quite there yet.
Well, at least from the Third Strike players.
Guys know how to make that work.
Yeah.
What's that?
At least from the Third Strike players.
Well,
yeah. But there was a lot of factors.
I'm going to say it because this is now recorded and documented. Getting Third Strike players organized is like wrangling cats. It's damn near impossible. Like, I'm putting it on the record, and I love them, but it's very difficult sometimes. And like, I think you put together, like, that event looked amazing, and I got a early preview to it. I'm like, this is exactly what I want. And somehow 202 Furious is doing something very similar, and it's and there's partnerships that happen, like things that I wasn't even aware of. Like, so Combo Breaker ST, there was a partnership there that I was not privy to whatsoever. And I'm like, well, thank you guys very much, because like, you did something amazing, and I didn't even have to do anything to it. And that also, like, so they're doing. Do you know about 202 Furious, like, Combo Breaker at all?
Yeah, I know. Well, 202 Furious and Third Strike, they I don't want to get too much into the history, but
and before I don't know about it,
before
so we can drop one at advance.
But before 202 Furious, it was known as Skillionaire, the Skillionaire tournament series. That's kind of what it sort of evolved into. And the Third Strike players in New York, we tried to kind of, we tried to go, hey, can we be part of the Skillionaire tournament thing, and it just never really materialized, because when it comes down to it, if a person that's in charge of a particular, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade at any particular players or anything, but
not naming names, but
deep down, like, if you're running like a tournament series and you're like, okay, we're gonna have Alpha 2, we're gonna have EX2, and we're gonna have ST, and then well,
everybody knows all the best Capcom games coming with the number 2 involved.
Well, okay, well, I don't know about that, but but there's that insularity. There's that insularity again, right? And so, like, if that player that's in charge does not like your game, there's really nothing you can do about it.
Well, and that's the difference between being a community and something that's like, well, that's what you have. Great book, kind of an aside, but not really. It's actually about the difference between Linux and Windows development. It's called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. And it's about how you organize groups. And you have the cathedral it's things are handed from down on high. So you have the TO sets the game, sets this, and sets that. And the bazaar is the fluid nature of how things organize themselves. So a bazaar is your standard, like, market, where, like, everybody sorts it out. That's the grassroots version. So you can either choose to go one from on high, or you choose the aggregate and people funnel up in what they want to organize.
Okay.
It's very, very insightful on how to manage any kind of complex project where there's a lot of pieces and a lot of variant pieces involved. It's like it literally is how to design an operating system, which you know is inherently complex. So it's whether if you mandate it from on high and try to meet those demands, or you let the aggregate make it work. And so when people like they have a great idea and then try to corral people into their idea, it's much more difficult than trying to have the consensus and then make something out of the consensus. And that's the difference between something that's a community and it's versus an oligarchy.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
but that's the issue with the Third Strike community, though. There is no if we just waited for a consensus to form, it would nothing would ever get done.
well, and see, like that's where I've not been vocal in this in a lot of ways. But like I'm trying to give people like you need base levels of agreement. Like, okay, what's an acceptable setup? Oh, it's played on 360. Is that tournament result not valid anymore? Like there's a lot of things where you can get into hardware arguments or this argument or that.
Mm.
It's like you need to have a consensus and like this is the basic operating standard. Because like, what's your ideal Third Strike tournament? It's run on head to head versus city, right?
That's ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. What will you accept as valid? Like, what's the lowest you'll go?
The lowest I would go.
Lowest you'll go. Yeah, and then this is a personal question. We haven't talked about this before, and like I'm kind of curious. Like, what is the lowest that like it's a real result? Because like for me, I
Well,
wouldn't take.
thanks to Chris and Windy Gaming, and now that super guns are much more
Oh,
available
we're
now.
into this one. Should we use it as a segue for the next segment?
Yes, this is going to be a segue for the next segment. But
Okay, so thanks to
but
Chris
now
and
that
Gaming,
super guns are
who's
much
watching right now.
yeah now that super guns are much more widely available thanks to people like Chris and Windy Gaming, and now that more and more people are starting to learn how to replicate arcade hardware. I know that you know no one's actually cracked the CPS3, like in terms of creating a board from scratch yet, obviously.
I
But
mean, good on them, and but also like, well, now
like
that Dark Souls there, maybe we can design new CPS3 games, which would also be kind of fun.
yeah,
We'll get that's a thing for a different time.
like to
But
me, you know, maybe like the person, I don't know, like I guess ideally the lowest I would go. That sounds like an oxymoron, right? Ideal and lowest, but
wait, no, we should do the second break
yeah.
because like this is something that I get asked about a lot.
Uh-huh.
Like I have dozens of actual like Facebook messages
Uh-huh.
from people that saw a post I made on Third Strike Junkies
Uh-huh.
and asked me about like how do I get Third Strike set up? Like what's the best like Ruben from Minnesota, Big Bad Wolf. Like I had tons of people asking about this. I think this is actually a really good breaking point to where we talk about like how to make Third Strike an acceptable version. So I think this is a good time to take a break.
Yeah.
And then we'll go like, okay, so what is a minimum standard for 3S play to where it's like you're doing it to where you can function at a higher level. So I really would think this would be a good point to break.
But I'll just answer your question real quick. I guess the lowest I would go, if and this is just a part of me that wants more people to play. I guess Xbox 360 on CRTs.
That's fine by me.
That's like the lowest I would go, and that's the part of me that's like, hey, we just need more people to play, Third Strike. And I know Ryan's in the chat. He says XB on 3SD, but it still sucks. Yes, it does still suck. But again,
it's still too fast. Like I mean, it really doesn't. I would see. No,
yeah.
That's why we got.
And I guess it all, but just kind of to put like kind of a cap on this part of the show. Really, the word that I just keep thinking about is sacrifice, right? Like what are you willing to sacrifice to what number one, do you actually care that there's a future for you for the game that you love, right? Like that's number one. Like I'm always interested in asking,
if you got nobody to play, what's a fighting game?
Yeah, right. Like you love like Third Strike players, they love Third Strike, they love playing the game, but what kind of love is it, right? Like we're starting to get kind of philosophical here.
We're in unconditional love versus,
right? Like
acceptance?
do you want do you want people to be playing Third Strike in 10 years, like in America? You know what I mean? And if you don't care about that, then cool, I understand. But
well,
you know.
That's where like I hate when people throw the whole like snobbery and elitist thing, because like that's actually like that's one of the things that makes me the most upset. Like, oh, you're an elitist because you demand that you want to play on CRT. I'm like honestly, you can find it on a street corner. Like there's two sitting across the street right now that I could pick
Why
up
don't
on
you
the
have them?
no,
Why aren't they in
I
your
could
house
just I
yet?
could if the camera on my iPad right now is good enough to pick it up, I could just like show it out the window and you could see it.
I expect
Playing
those. I
Third Strike on
expect those.
CRT is not a hard thing to do.
I expect those
I have
CRTs to
a
be in your
CRT
living
sitting in
room.
the corner of my room right now.
I expect those 2 CRTs to be in your living room after the break.
They got rained on already and
Oh, they
snowed
got
on.
rained on already. Oh,
They
never mind
ain't
then.
come back from that.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of being selective on that. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. Is like, at what point do you like stand on principles? Like we are getting philosophical right now. Like, how far do you go on principle on what the ideal is versus what you're willing to do to be able to do the thing you love?
Uh-huh.
And that's the point. It's like there's definitely ideal, slightly less than ideal, and acceptable.
Mhm.
And if acceptable is where you start to get a scene going,
Mhm.
and then you work together to make things more ideal. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Mhm.
And that's what like upset me a lot about trying to get people together for 3S
Mhm.
is that it was, oh, you don't have this setup, I'm not going to play on it.
And prime example is the Gutter Trash Kids from the UK. Every
Which,
third strike board that
their
they
setup,
have,
and it's
every third
nice.
strike board that they have, I'm pretty sure almost every third strike board that they have was purchased using money that was raised from the community. And I've met these kids, okay, and I call them kids affectionately because they really are kids. They're not like, they're not like 40-year-olds or even people in the late 30s,
It's
that are
not disposable income. It is
right.
real
They're not,
important money.
and so I don't want to, I don't want to, make it seem like I'm throwing shade at the scenes here in America, but I mean, these are kids,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, that are able
Well,
to.
this is you and me both, my friend. You and me both, and like people in Chicago have stepped up because of it. And like
They have like
what
seven third
like I
strike
said, I'm the
boards.
fixer.
They have like 8 third strike boards that they've bought. The community has just bought them,
If you can find 7 or 8 in the UK, I help people find 2 more from mine. Like we need to do the story of hardware is another one too. So like mine, I had the good fortune where a buddy of mine who he wants to start playing Marvel 2, and I'm like, no, we're gonna play Third Strike because like at that time it was like 2008, very very deep into Third Strike, and I got him hooked on the game, and he's been a Urian player ever since, and he loves it. Nick, if you're watching, you're gonna watch it later. Very glad to have you to play that. He and I found a cab in Iowa, $350 for a full cab, not board, monitor, everything.
$350.
$350. It was the gold mine of the century. That is the board I'm running to this day, and I haven't dark softed it yet. So it's still the Asian OCD, like just that funny sound effects version. But he still has the monitor. We still have the control panel. I actually redid the whole top panel originally. I rewired it with Japanese controls and did the Street Fighter 3 manga as the background art for it.
Oh,
It was
sick.
just in a big. It was like some Frankenstein cap. So I redid the artwork, did all the like this great stuff for it. Like that's still there. But now that I found people and like got them excited about like, yeah, you can do it too. I got 2 more Third Strike boards in Chicago, and they're both getting dark stuff modded. So now we have 3 plus the cab at Logan. Like it's doable if you know how to do smart, and like they're not that hard if you know where to look and you know who to ask. And now I'm inviting a whole lot of trouble for me because this is where I usually get involved with people is that they're like, hey, how do I play Third Strike the best way I can for what I can afford?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where people approach me, and that is actually kind of why you're talking to me because I'm usually the person that's like, I'm the fixer. I'm like, I can get you Third Strike to an acceptable level to where if you go to a tournament, you'll be able to hang.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is how Third Strike is supposed to be done. I'm not going to tell you to run Dreamcast on a VGA LCD.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Well, anyway, I guess the bottom line is, I think you and me both agree that there's a little too much bitching and complaining on in the Third Strike community. Not enough doing, not enough not enough going out there and getting your hands dirty. So I guess it's a
By
good
the
way
way,
to
though,
kinda...
we've never met in person yet either.
No, we haven't.
Are you coming to Combo Breaker? because
Um,
that's also the segue that we need to make
yes.
too.
Well, we are going to talk about Combo Breaker. We're going to talk about Michigan Masters again. And I also definitely want to talk more about hardware when we get back. But
Oh,
in the meantime, I think we're overdue for a break. Uh, Probably Brian needs to get another beer.
I need restroom break.
Yeah. All right.
Bottle of whiskey in the room, and I have another beer in tow, so we're fine.
Yeah. So once again, guys, this is Mutant XP along with Brian, aka Bathtub Leviathan from Chicago. We're gonna take a couple minutes break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk more about the hardware side of Arcade Third Strike. And as I said in an earlier post on 3SJ, I want to talk about all the gray hairs that you've grown from trying to.
They're white.
They're
We
white,
bypassed
yeah.
gray. We've gone straight to white
Okay.
in the soul patch.
All right then. All right, so we're gonna be
Yeah,
back
that's
in a
fine.
couple minutes, and so stick around, guys. All right, guys, welcome back to the Mutant Experience. I'm MutantXP with my guest tonight, Brian,
Oh,
aka.
good friend. You're gonna say good friend.
No,
We're
no,
already
I
friends.
was gonna say something completely different. I don't know what I was gonna say. It wasn't good friend, although I'm sure we will become good friends, Brian. But that's
I
not
was
what I was
supposed to
gonna say. I
work.
was gonna say something. I don't know what I was gonna say. But anyway, here with my special guest tonight, Brian, aka Bathtub Leviathan from the Chicago area. And so, Brian, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the hardware side of things. Um, we had just finished talking about how, I guess for a lack of a better term, a lot of Third Strike purists are very picky on what they play on, and rightfully so.
That
Because
and that was the phrase I was looking for. Rightfully so.
and
Like
rightfully so because
arcade
Third
Third
Strike
Strike
is
is
not is
inherently
yeah.
different from any other version of Third Strike.
Yeah, Third Strike requires, you know, the degree of precision and reaction that Third Strike requires sort of demands, that it be played, in an optimal setting. And so, with that said, obviously, the recent developments in arcade hardware, have been pretty significant in terms of, keeping arcade Third Strike alive. And so, I know that you've kind of been at the forefront of this for the last few years, Brian, in terms of hooking up super guns and getting
I
boards and
I want to
stuff.
do what's like the best, most affordable version of things.
Hmm.
And like super guns are super guns in some facsimile,
Hmm.
and arcade boards are arcade boards. That's just as it is. And then there's just like what you can make for compromises. But yeah, continue where you're going with that.
Well, I just wanted to just get your thoughts on how you see you know how you see the Thirst Strike scene sort of evolving, now that, we're learning more and more about CPS3 hardware, and now that you know, it's gotten a lot easier because, I remember back,
Suicide
10,
batteries.
yeah,
Woo! The boogeyman.
like I
The
remember
boogeyman
10,
was always
15,
suicide batteries.
yeah, I remember like 10, 15 years ago, the super guns were, pretty expensive, right?
And also like cobbled together in the
Yes.
ugliest fashion possible.
And so now with more affordable super guns coming out, i.e., like the ATP 300 from Windy Gaming, it's
I
just
mean,
becoming a lot easier
not
to.
not to I didn't make them.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wear this shirt and this hat is completely unrelated to fighting games. But if you see me in a tournament, this is what I'll be wearing. So if you want to play Third Strike, you look for this whole setup,
You look
and you'll
for
find
that.
where Third Strike's going to be at. I'll tell you that first and foremost. But the reason why I wear this shirt all the time and I wear it at tournaments is because Chris at Wendy has been a great supporter of me, not only in just like the super gun aspect, but in he gets cables from Lemony Vengeance
Mhm.
and stuff like that. He is just like a great resource for knowledge and anything I have questions about in terms of arcade hardware. He's always been there for me, and like I support the people that support me. And then he comes out with this great super gun that's incredibly lightweight. Like the JAMA harness weighs more than the super gun itself,
Mhm.
and it's just well put together, easy to operate. You don't have to do all these things, and
And super affordable.
yeah, and introductory price was $300 for an S video output one,
Mhm.
and then I think you had to bump it up.
No, the introductory price was 250.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called introductory.
Yeah, that one was there, and so now the
No, no,
ATP
well,
300 was
Chris
the
promoted it.
300 is the $300 cost.
Chris promoted it, so it's
Yeah,
not like it
and
was a
you
secret.
you
It's
you
not like it
jumped in
was the
early
bro
because
discount.
the same way I did, and
Yeah.
then so yeah, he did that, and super simple. Like it's JAMA plus kick. The thing that people have struggled with, and I actually ran into this myself. Like I'm more of a novice than I seem like, but I've dug deep because you have people like Jed Possum and guys like that have been digging into hardware, or like JAMA Nation X that have been digging into these things for years and years, and they've done so much work, and it's like now we've gotten these great conveniences like the undammed converters and stuff like that. And the thing about the Windy Supergun is that it runs on a SNK Plus DB15 output, which to save people the technical details, it's made for SNK games, is what it's made for. The guy that made it, Chris, he was really big into SNK games and especially like shoot 'em ups. where you don't need a full 6-button setup the same way you do for Capcom games. So it was wired particularly for that, but he had the foresight to wire in the kick harness, which is also important for any Capcom game you play. You need that for a CPS2 or a CPS3. But the output for it is not your standard USB output. It's an arcade DB15 output. So you have Undammed made these lovely USB conversion ports that start with a DB15 and end out at USB. But the pinouts, so all the little prongs that you see, are not wired identically to that. So you have to do a little bit of a legitimate hack, is what it is. Like, this is not hack in the modern colloquial terms. This is a legit hardware hack that you have to do. So you buy a DB15 cord, cut off one end, split the wires, and reassign the ports based on what it needs. And on Chris's site, he actually lays out, this is the pinout and this is what you need to do. And I've made a write-up, so anybody, maybe in the description to the video, will put up a link to the PDF that I had sent you about it, where, like, this is how you rewire those. And the extra parts, like, other than the Undammed, are $40 a piece, or $35 if you can get the ones that are not the enclosed ones. You get the screw-down terminal ones. But it's another $20 in parts that allows you to use your 360 stick, your PS3 stick, anything that has a USB interface. So that was a bit of a hurdle and took some understanding on my part. But I was like, oh, okay, well, this is completely doable. Like, you can buy these parts off of Amazon. I have the links to the parts. You can do this. But that gives you the intermediary to get from your standard controller. Like, you can use your TE, which that was a great progress in hardware in its own right. Having quality mass-produced arcade sticks was a hard thing to come by. Like, in 2005, getting a quality mass-produced arcade stick was actually not that easy to do.
No.
Like, there were, like, you had your Agitech sticks, you had your Hori sticks, but they weren't plentiful. And then Magcat stepped up their game to that. But the USB interface changes the way you're not doing direct controller inputs. And then the Super Guns are an adapter to using the arcade hardware and your standard arcade stick.
So, I think, with the more affordable Super Guns, and then we have to obviously give a shout out to Darksoft, because
Absolutely.
And so, it's becoming a lot easier to play quote unquote arcade perfect Dirt Strike, but I always like to put that phrase in quotation marks.
See, that's the thing. Like, what's the quote unquote for you? Because it's arcade ROMs running on arcade hardware.
Well, to me, it's like, what's the best way to sort of describe this? Like, so when you play a video game, right? And this kind of touches on the whole, is competitive gaming considered esports or considered a sport, right? It kind of touches on that. But, like, when I think about playing Third Strike, just me, right? When I think about playing Third Strike, at least competitively, it's not just about the hardware. It's about the physical. It's about the physical aspects of playing it. You know what I mean?
And there's parts where I will say yes, and there's parts where I'll say no. So
yeah. And so, to me, yeah, like that's a saying. Like, to me, obviously, arcade perfect. That has a lot to do. I think that phrase is subjective, because not everyone, grew up playing Third Strike the same way. Like, for example, like when I first learned Third Strike, like, for example, when I first learned Third Strike, I played like a lot of other American players back in the early 2000s. I played on American sticks. I played on either a showcase.
Nickel City for me. Yeah. I had my first arcade board for 3S I ever played on was at Nickel City. Yeah. American parts, and it was one of those. You had the panel, and the monitor was set way back. That's the first thing I played arcade Third Strike on.
And when I started going to tournaments, and when I started going to Family Fun, the setup there was basically two American cabinets head to head, So that was to
Which
me.
I mean, that is like the unicorn of head-to-head third strike setups, because like you see Japanese head-to-head setups, but an American head-to-head setup is I've never seen that in person in my life.
Mm-hmm. So when I think about Arcade Perfect, I don't just think about just the technical game itself. I think
It's the experience.
it's the experience too, and I think that's kind of what people sort of don't sort of factor in, is that when people say, "Oh, I want Arcade Perfect," you know, number one, it's subjective. Number two, but even if you don't know it, you're also factoring in the physical experience as well.
Which I will definitely say, because like if you're playing on your own stick, or so I've even had people play on head-to-head cabs and they didn't like the
Yeah,
cabs
yeah.
that they
They
were.
some people don't even like playing on versus city cabs because you feel what the other player is doing because
And
you're playing on the
this is
same
again
machine.
no disparity, but Roy Bizzle at Civil War, he was playing head-to-head in ST, and if you hit the panel hard enough, it would actually kind of shake where like it could actually potentially trigger the other person's button. So like that's another thing. I'm playing an arcade. Like
Okay.
this guy Kenny that plays at Logan, and like he's a good player altogether, but he would do this on the ST machines. Like if you hit P1 side hard enough,
Yeah.
you can trigger somebody else's fierce punch. Like it went off, and so he would do that, and so you'd be playing, and all of a sudden you'd be sitting there doing neutral, and he would slam the machine, not hitting any buttons, trigger that button, and then punish you for it. I'm like, that is banging the machine to the purest instinct right there. So yeah, like even arcade is not, it's not sterile. There's no sterile fighting game or third strike environment.
Mm-hmm.
There's
And,
what you can work with, and I think usually what, and also there's the introduction of pad players is a whole different thing
oh
too.
wow,
And
that's
I like to be accommodating as much as I can, and that's why I always make sure to announce, like if I'm going to be the person running a bracket, I want to make sure that, okay, this is a super gun with undamped converter. So plenty in advance, we're talking months, that if you need to play on a pad, it has to be able to link to this undamped converter.
Mm-hmm.
You have plenty of time to test it out. Because I want you to be able to play that, like I said, room not to bitch is the number one thing I want. Like, you don't get to complain because everything is laid out there, and it's either you can choose not to enter, or you can choose to play with the terms that are there. The terms are there to be played upon. So if your controller works on it and you have no qualms about it, then it's perfectly valid.
My issue with pad players though is, obviously America isn't the only country to play Third Strike, and it's not even the best country that plays Third Strike. We all know the best country that plays Third Strike. Um, but my
Korea.
issue with pad player Korea, North Korea.
No, absolutely. Like I'm the purist in the sense where like you play the game on the tools that was intended to be played upon.
Mm-hmm. So
Like that's my thing. Like so for me, even if I don't like the cab, if I get head to head versus city put in front of me for ST, 3S, or whatever, I'm like, well, that's the most. If I went to Japan to play the lords and kamis of any game, like that's what they're playing on. That's what I play on.
yeah, yeah,
That's the way I do it. Like so now, pad, you're an exception.
mm-hmm.
But I will be accommodating because you know what? I want people to play in my tournament. And this even goes back to what we were saying about being inviting. Like, I'll try to accommodate you as best I can, but there's a limit toward technical limits at that point, too. And the game was designed to be played on 6 buttons and a joystick.
Yeah.
That's how the game was designed to be played. Wherever you go from there, I wouldn't say it's not right, but yeah, I guess that's where your argument for subjective versions of Arcade Perfect, that's where that comes in. Because those are different. Because like if you're John Choi playing ST, Arcade Perfect is American 6 with a half 360.
Yeah, right.
So it's a totally different thing. Like I would never want to play on that personally for ST, but that's what he grew up like. It's also like as pure as can be for playing Street Fighter in 1992. So it is a subjective medium in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the issue with pad players is, the whole point. To me, when it gets down to it, you play a game, for the competition, right? And so, we know where the stiffest competition is. We know what they play on, and so if a pad player, if I would I go out of my way to, maybe like mod my cab? Like for example, there's
I've
a
seen that, and Nichols too. Yeah,
yeah,
they've done it before where they have a pad input for
yeah,
things.
there's a new there's a video game spot in Brooklyn that that's been open for a while. But there's definitely gonna be a lot more people going there because they just got a Versus City cab. It's called IFM, iFix Machine. Shout out to Chris, another Chris who runs that place, along with the Virtual Fighter crew. That's kind of where their home is, and they're working on a way to plug in your pad or any kind of USB controller. So for me, I would tell the player, sure, if the cab allows you to play on the pad, go ahead, play on the pad. Just know that,
But how much do we need to cater to you at that point?
yeah, and
Because
just
I mean, we have that in Chicago where there's
yeah,
people like, oh, I play on pad. I'm like, well, there's only so much I can do. It's not my joint. I'm not in charge of the cab. Like, I would do it for you, but it's not easy to do. Like
no,
doing that wiring, it's not
no,
incredibly difficult, but that's an extra burden
it is.
on the owners and the establishment. Like, look, the game was designed to be played a certain way,
Uh-huh.
and I think I'm not saying you shouldn't play that way, but I'm like, well, then you have to just look at the terms. Like, if you don't want to play it that way, then you don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't argue about people being better or worse. Oh, if I had my pad or I had this. I'm like, look, these are the tools.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you have available to you. This is how the community is accepted to it. And it is a very slippery slope. Like, what do you allow, what do you not allow?
And I think that makes it even more important that the different regions, or at least the different hotspots, that have been putting work in to keep Third Strike alive. Get together and maybe develop some kind of agreed upon standard. Because if all the major regions, right, like came together and they all announced on 3SJ, okay, this is what we deem as legit. I'm pretty sure people would be like, okay, I'm pretty sure people would follow suit.
And there's a fine line. Like, you don't want to alienate people,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to get hung up on that idea alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of why, I'm actually very much a fan of if you do a super gun, a CPS3 board,
Mm-hmm.
get a splitter, and run head-to-head CRTs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That, so when we were talking about, bare minimum, that is, my best case scenario. If you're not running a head-to-head cab, that's my best compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Because, people do, people run Korean 6. I actually prefer playing on Sanwa LS32s, which before JLS were made, that's what was in all Japanese cabs before JLS were even in there, and they're a little bit stiffer. I prefer those, but I'll play on a JLF. It's fine. It is what it is. But you need to find that bare minimum compromise. But a super gun plus split head-to-head monitors on a board with undammed converters, I think that is a great bare minimum to play. Not bare minimum. Just really accepted minimum to play Third Strike on. I think that is the greatest compromise you can make while keeping the integrity of the game. Because the game itself is playing at the right speed. The only thing you have is the undammed converters, which are minute amounts of lag, if anything. Nothing perceptible. We're talking thirds of a frame where at that point it doesn't matter. You're playing on CRTs and you're playing head-to-head. So all it requires is one super gun, two CRTs, one board, a splitter, and the converters. And that is basically a Versus City out of the box. With whatever inputs you choose to put into it. Which I think that is a great standard to run through. But we've got to get all these regions to agree upon it. But do we all talk to one another?
That's the first step, right?
We need to talk to one another.
Yeah.
Because the internet forums and boards like that, that's the thing. Facebook is a great thing for organizing events and planning things, but it's terrible for legitimate discussion.
Yeah.
Because it gets lost and people don't get tagged and things. When you have Third Strike, as much as I love it and hate it, it has its uses for certain things. The wiki is great to have. There's good references, and they start doing the ST Revival or This is Third Strike is another thing. It's you have those avenues that you can explore upon. You need to be able to establish those okay, ways to play offline Third Strike. This is how you go. And the moment though you start ranking those, because I did that on Third Strike Junkies, and I was so glad to do it and so sorry to do it at the same time. Because, like, I got people, like, flooding me with questions. And then, like, sometimes, like, it's great. Like, you feel valued in that point. But also, it's like, I've answered this question before. You just refer to the thread. But people can't refer to the thread because it's lost in the ether at this point.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, if you need to practice Third Strike at home, CRT, Xbox, or even PS3, because like even the testing is showing like those are minimal differences. Either one of the OE versions with the CRT, you're good. That's a way to practice Third Strike. And then all you do, if you're playing on a tournament that's on a super gun, you get some casuals in, within 2-3 matches, you're warmed up. You're fine.
Yeah.
But it's just like, people get so gummed up in this, and it's like, well, play the game. Just play the game at that point. And that's the part that worries me, is like, that's where Third Strike players are, like I said, I hate that elitist snobbery thing, but like, just deal with what you have. Like, sometimes you just gotta play with what you got. And if it's as close as you can possibly get it, within reasonable limits, that's what it is. So don't shrug off like somebody's really concerted efforts, because it's not easy for anybody to plug a CRT anywhere.
Nope.
So just kind of like, okay, take it for what it is. And be constructive, but don't be shitty about it. So, I mean, that's my thing. Is like, if you can't get a cab, and honestly, I'd rather play head to head on a super gun versus playing side by side on a regular cab. Because when you start hearing people hit buttons, that's kind of a tell that you don't want to give away.
Yeah, like, and you know what? Like, the ST community did this at Evo too. I think, you know, but again, it requires somebody to kind of step up and go, okay, I'm going to create this thing. But remember at the second tournament of Legends, you know, they created this sort of
oh, no, wait, Matsune actually like got up and he shut the thing. It's like no, because Matsune works in an arcade. So at the TOL, and like, this is the one they actually did for the highlight reel, and I'm like, why did you pick that clip of any clip you could have done? Because what Matsune did is, like, he works at a Japanese arcade, and he looks like a rock star. Like, he's just got the feather coat and everything. But he walks up, and he's like, he's sitting, and he would shake the panel that they had, because like, it wasn't stable enough. And like, he was constantly critical of it. Like, so they tried to engineer this like stand head-to-head setup and all that, and Matsune wasn't pleased with it. And the only thing you could do to appease somebody like him, and he's meticulous, and that's the polite way of putting it. But also, I stand no chance so I can't complain, because I can't beat him. If I could beat him on his own setup, then I'd be able to complain. But he has particular things. Like, he shook the cap, and that's in the ad for it. I'm like, that is the worst clip you could have ever took, because now that's opening that up to debate. And so, yeah, you can only appease certain amounts. But yeah, they tried to build this rig that had this nice panel, arcade height, like they measured it to a T, but the weight wasn't right, because you could shake it. It's like, how far can you take this without alienating people? And that's a word we haven't touched upon. I think that's the word that we really need to address, is alienating people. And that's where the like, just the jadedness and all that comes in. Like, when you're so, like, it makes it seem like you hate the game that you love. Why would you do that? You just kind of gotta let certain things go. And, like, it's okay to have gripes. Like, gripes are a natural part of it. Like, sticks aren't great on the cab that you're playing. That's real. In the end, this is not life or death. Like, you gotta figure, like, you've had people from all over the country or all over your region come together and play this game that you would never met otherwise. Kind of just gotta take that for what it is. And like, some people are competitive, like, and that's one of the weird things about me, is like, I'm explicitly not competitive. I like playing what I feel like is doing well, and then winning is a proxy of that. Like, if I play well, that means I win, so I win twice at that point. But like, if you're gonna alienate people and like start making like hemming and hawing over details of like, oh, this cab wasn't good, this wasn't good, like, well, that's just how you tear your own scene apart. Why would you want to do that? If you want people to play this game with, you really have to, like, there has to be an even thing. And I do think, don't take this as a absolutism, but I think the future of Third Strike is actually super guns head to head. If you want to keep the game with the widest entry level, I think that's the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can bring your own stick, and if you really want to get meticulous about it, you do it on DB15 inputs, but that's even getting too far. Like, if you do undammed, supergun, head-to-head, bring your own controller, that is probably the most pragmatic version of Third Strike that you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I agree, and just to be clear, it's the CPS3 technology was by no means finished. You know what I mean? Like it was never
Yeah.
it was never as polished as CPS2.
Nobody designs a full-on new hardware architecture to release 6 games.
Yeah,
that's not a real thing. So yeah, no, they had grand visions for this, and
they
because
never
like,
materialized.
but that was like it was explicitly designed for fighting games. Like you can see what games were released upon it. It's like, well, it was designed with fighting games in mind, but it was meant for like 25 games at least. Whereas you have like Naomi had a whole host of things. So like the Blast Cities were meant for Sega Bass Fishing, but that still ran on Naomi. That also ran Guilty Gear and CBS2.
Mm-hmm.
So like the hardware, like no, they were platforms. They were consoles for arcade tier things.
Mm-hmm.
CPS3 had a grand vision behind it, and it just got cut off like way too early because there's so much amazing stuff that it was capable of. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is what we have.
Yeah, I always thought, like, for example, the JoJo games, those were some...
We played those last week, and it was like, because somebody's finally got a dark software that works, I'm like, holy crap, these are so pretty.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing, too, someone said it in the chat, we're in a race against the Melee community. I swear, I swear, the Melee community has some warehouse in, Wyoming, and they're just stockpiling CRTs because, the last few years...
I got my sources. Don't worry about it. I know where to find CRTs.
Because the last few years, I've been seeing less and less CRTs on, the back pages and the Craigslist. I swear the Melee players are...
Come talk to me. I'll find you the good ones. Because, like, oh, wait. Do I want to blow this up? It's actually not a secret group. So, there's a group called the CRT Collective on Facebook.
Yeah.
And those are aficionados. Like, true aficionados. That's where you find your Sony PVM, BVMs, those broadcast quality monitors. I actually met a guy at Frosty Faustings that has a recycling plant for those because you can't throw those out.
Yeah.
They have to pay to recycle them. They have to pay money. So when he gets them, we can get them for free because it costs him money to recycle them. That's why you talk to people. That's why you generate community. But if you need to find CRTs, this is also where it comes in for me. It's like, I can tell people to find good ones or find them the resources for the ones you want. Like, they're there. They're plentiful. The problem is that now there's the retro gaming market is getting more selective because people that are our age are getting older and more selective and have more disposable income. So that's where they go for, like, oh, I want the 20-inch PVM, this version with SCART inputs and stuff. They can afford to be more selective. But if you need to find CRTs, it can be done. But the hard part is, like, you can't travel with them. So going to EVO and trying to run tournaments on old people games at EVO is tough. Because that means you got to source most of them locally unless people from SoCal are willing to do that. So that's one of those things. Like, Third Strike at EVO last year was done on... The only CRT was on the stream station. Everything else was done on LCDs.
Well, I tried my best remotely to sort of help out. But anyway, but that's it is what it is.
Bygones be bygones,
Yeah.
And they did the best they could with what they had.
No, I shout outs to Joe. Yeah, shout outs to Joe from the Sharkade arcade in NorCal. He truly loves Third Strike. I mean, we had I remember he was on a House of Strikes, and he shared a really awesome story about how he played the beta at Golfland at Sunnyvale Golfland. But
Oh
anyhow,
damn.
we're gonna have to move on and talk a little bit about some of the events that are coming up in your neck of the woods, Brian, because I know you're itching to do that. So, first and foremost, Michigan Masters. You said you were going.
I am. I will be there with hardware in tow. So I will have my super gun
Mm-hmm.
and Japanese ST and that Asian OCD version of 3S in tow.
Okay then. And so remember, Michigan Masters is on April 1st and 2nd.
Correct.
Um, remember, is Rick picking you up?
Oh no, I'm just hauling myself out there.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're driving there. I forgot that. But let's talk a little bit about the big event in Chicago, and that's Combo Breaker.
Combo breaker? Yes,
Yes,
we can talk about that.
Combo Breaker. So let's talk a little bit about Combo Breaker. So Combo Breaker is set to take place May 26th to 28th. Uh, and where exactly is it taking place? I know it's a suburb
It's
outside
St.
of
Charles,
Chicago.
Illinois, so it's a bit out of the ways of Chicago,
Hmm.
but it's Memorial Day weekend, so the event is scheduled so that you actually have a recovery Monday
Hmm.
on the tail end of it. It's about I would say 50 minutes outside of Chicago, but the venue is 24 hours, and that's the
That's sick.
compromise they made for it is that it's a 24-hour venue and they haul out arcade cabs. So like if you walk into the opening of that, it's wall to wall arcade cabs on
Wow.
the way in, and it's a 24-hour venue. So like that's the compromise because previous ones had been held closer to the airport. They're also offering free shuttles. Like it's limited times in which the shuttles run because it's a big trip,
Hmm.
but it is they've been extremely accommodating to what's going on there.
Hmm. And so now, uh, as of today, there isn't officially a Third Strike tournament, right?
No, not officially.
Hmm.
Um, I know setups will be present at the very least,
Hmm.
and I don't want to overspeak, but like I've addressed the people that run it, and prospects are good because they are supposed to announce official side games,
Hmm.
and it seems promising. That's the most I'd say without overextending myself.
Are you going to be running Third Strike?
If it's yeah, I will do it whether it's official or not official.
Uh-huh.
I will be there with 3 arcade boards.
3 arcade boards and 3 super guns and 3 CRTs.
Whether it's official or not, it will be present,
Hmm.
and it's a yeah. That's the matter there. So once it's officially announced, I will say where it's going to happen, but it will be there with 3 arcade boards.
Hmm. Yeah, Combo Breaker has gained a reputation in the last few years. And one of the really hard things for majors to do is really strike that balance, right, between newer games, mainstream games, and old games. And I feel like Combo Breaker's been doing an amazing job of that. So has Big E, as well. Obviously Big E, continues to support the old man games by bringing out Tony Majors to all his events. But
And
it's
like
a
I've been
hard thing to
to
do, right?
events where
Increasingly,
Tony Majors was involved, but I
yeah.
haven't to a Big E thing. And like I need to like that's where I got to go visit. I got
Hmm.
to extend my hand to the East Coast scene
Yeah.
because like yeah, like that's one of those people who's like Big E has got a good reputation for that and representing the old man games. Like Combo Breaker is our version of that.
Hmm. And so, you know, what would you say to Third Strike players who are interested in going to Combo Breaker? How would you get them there? I'm going to give you the floor, Brian, to sort of sell Combo Breaker.
Well, number one, 24-hour venue.
Uh-huh.
So you can literally play it to your heart's content.
Now, is there a possibility that Third Strike might be on a cab? Maybe. No. Maybe.
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. If most likely it'll be on super guns and CRTs for sure, and I will do my best to do head to head
Hmm.
with identical CRTs if I can.
Hmm.
But I can't. And identical CRTs is actually kind of a moot point. But on a cab, I don't think we can do it. Based on like we wouldn't have Japanese cabs to match up. We can probably get an American cab, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't be great. So I would expect that for this year, because we didn't get it as an official game in. I would expect it, at the very least 3 super guns, plenty of time for casuals, and so that's what I'm able to promise at this point.
Okay, and so definitely keep an eye out for more developments for Combo Breaker. Once again,
Well, and then let's put it out like in this way: is that the more people that show up and put a face in,
mm-hmm.
the more likelihood that we get a better time next year. Because
Definitely.
ST last year and also 3S last year were thrown together.
Mm-hmm.
And ST last year got about 50 people involved, and ST this year got a promise of a custom arcade cab,
Wow.
official game status. So like it's there. They recognize people that are doing good things,
mm-hmm.
and that's my favorite thing about Combo Breakers. Like
they reward
really
the community.
are,
They reward the efforts. Yeah.
exactly. They're very in tune to like what people respond to, and the people that are main people in charge of the event observe that and they acknowledge that. So anything that you can do, you get back in turn. And it's an amazingly fun thing. Like in general, like that was an incredibly fun tournament, and you're gonna meet more people, and it's a great thing for scenes that like if you don't think you have a scene,
mm-hmm.
it's great for that. So if you're in that Midwest, like, oh, I'm in Iowa, nobody plays this game, come out to Combo Breaker. If you're in Nebraska, you know you have a scene, so come try to beat up on Chicago people. If you're in St. Louis and you think you can win, we'll prove you wrong. Like, it's all there. Like, if you're in any state that touches Illinois and there's like 7 of them, come try to prove yourself. Because I actually met a lot of great people from Minnesota, like Ruben. Like, I met that guy. He's been a good friend all the way through. And he's shown up to further events. Like, this is how you grow a scene. Like, show up, give it a try, and if you find me, I'll show you a good time. Whether you win or not, I'm going to show you a good time.
So, guys...
there's Portillo's right next door, so if you don't know what Chicago food is, you can at least get Portillo's, which is perfectly servable Chicago-style food.
All right. So, once again, guys, Combo Breaker set to go down May 26th to 28th, Memorial Day weekend, just outside of Chicago. As far as registration goes, early registration has already passed, but you can still get into the regular registration. It's $55 for all 3 days, right? That's basically the player.
No,
yeah, and that's available until April. Yeah, and that's available until April 2nd. After that, you'll have to contend with late registration, which is $70. So if you guys are, just even thinking that you might be able to go.
The venue is 24 hours, so like if you're in the main area, you can play the entire night.
Awesome. And spectator passes are free, supposedly.
Yes, they are. And the spectator passes include the arcade cabs that they brought in last year. I believe they're doing them again this year, so there will be in the entryway an entire, like, they had Hyper Fighting, they had CVS2, all in the entryway, free play.
Great, awesome. So, Brian, before we get out of here...
this is the part I was kind of dreading and really excited about.
The time has come. I know there are certain people that are on in the chat right now that have been eagerly awaiting this week's edition of Pack It Up. And so
they just want me off the stream, but I'm also trying to look if it's people I know.
Yeah. And so, for those of you who are just tuning in and are new to the Mutant Experience, we have a regular segment called Pack It Up, where I scour the internet for some of the more unique examples of Third Strike play, lowlights, if you will. And so, I guess without further...
There's no way you found one of mine.
No. I wouldn't do that to you.
Okay, good.
I wouldn't do that to you, Brian.
No, you should, though.
I don't know. I like to think that I'm doing a service to the Third Strike community. They know that every week I'm going to be showing this. And so Third Strike players are going to want to up their game and not want to mess up. At least that's what I'd like to think. So anyway, without further ado, guys, here is this week's edition of Pack It Up. All right. So, let's get started. Nominee number 1. Alex's crazy hops are on full display as he sails right over his opponent's fireball. Who says that super isn't good? Right, Brian?
Yeah, when you throw red fireballs for full screen? Cool. Okay. You can do that.
Okay, I definitely want to get your thoughts on this next one, Brian. Nominee number 2, this Oro player shows us some of the worst meter management in history as he chooses to throw out an orb after winning the round. Look at what he does here. Look at his meter.
Oh!
That's actually kind of weird why it does that, right?
Normally, like, you get that for free, so you cancel it, like, if it kills them and you cancel... Yeah, that's odd.
So nominee number 3, to show that I'm not afraid to put my own friends on Pack It Up, here's my boy from Florida, back to basics, getting caught mashing online. So remember, basics, you reach, I teach. So nominee number 4, speaking of friends,
No.
this is a clip from a recent Houston tournament, and I completely blame Katie Alpha for this. Okay, you've seen Karate Kid, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
so like Mr. Miyagi says in part 3, right? There's no such thing as a bad student, only a bad teacher. And so our final nominee number 4, nominee number 5, excuse me. You know it's 3S when dudes are getting hit in the head with basketballs in the middle of the desert. And so just watch how these 2 rounds end.
Wait, that happens more than once?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
You're actually going to be surprised by my answer.
Yes. So pick your favorite. Tweet me. Let me know what you think earns the top spot in this week's Pack It Up. What do you think, Brian? Which one was your favorite?
Oh, number 3. Nobody should be hit by a counter super in 3S. Because I've done that.
But it's online, though.
I hated myself for a week afterwards.
But it's online, though. To defend my boy Basics, it's online. You know.
No. It doesn't even matter. That takes like 17 frames to... No.
I mean...
You do not get hit... I've played that super to handicap myself. You should never, ever get hit by a Remy counter super.
I like the Aura one.
I'm not saying those are not good. But that one, it just struck a chord in my heart. And... like, I've tried to put that out there in smart situations, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And to just have that happen to you, like, what were you thinking?
Yeah. Well,
I can be wrong. Like I said, I qualify myself as a mediocre player at best. But nobody should get hit by a Remy counter super.
All right. So before we end the show, Brian, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we get out of here? Maybe a few shout-outs that you don't think that you forgot to make?
I'm not going to do any better than I did, but thank you for anybody that shows up to Logan Arcade and puts in a quarter. That is very important. And also, thank you to Ignite for starting to put up with our stuff. So that's our Monday spot right now, and they're letting us put CRTs in, so that might be another good spot for 3S, ST, Old Man Games in Chicago. Thank you guys very much for supporting us. We appreciate you, being complicit in our complaining.
Mm-hmm.
So, love you guys. Love the scene. And if I forgot anybody, I'll put a quarter down, and I'll see you then.
So, Brian, we have a question in the chat from Lance, Alaskan Third Strike player. So,
okay.
So basically, I guess there's, one thing that the community seems to have agreed on is that TFC is kind of going to become sort of the annual sort of big Third Strike American event. And so, do you think maybe you or any of the other Chicago players, there might be a chance that you guys can make it out to North Carolina this year? I mean, there's not even a date yet for TFC, but it's going to happen.
It's usually mid-October.
It's usually October.
So the only qualms I have about going there myself, and like I've seen Lance play, I know he's got my number. It's fine. Yes, I do want to go very much. I know Quentin plans on going. I know I can get more Chicago people to go. The only reason why I wouldn't go is because Canada Cup is 2 weeks after, and their ST showing has been really, really good. Mm-hmm. So to go North Carolina and Canada within 2 weeks one another, that's...
Yeah, well, you went to Canada Cup last year, though.
Yeah, and I had a great time.
Let's go to TFC this year, and I'm sure you'll have a great time, too.
All right, well...
Hopefully the power will be on the entire time.
Lance?
Yeah.
On record,
All right.
See you there.
All right. Hopefully the power will be on the entire time. I'm sure you heard about
Lance,
that.
bring a generator. You're used to that.
Yes. Shouldn't Lance have a generator already? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. He can just bring it with him.
yeah.
All right, yeah. I'll see you there, and we'll shake hands, and I'll buy you a drink.
And one more question last question I had, Brian, because you're part of both the ST and the 3S community. Um, do you think there's a possibility that maybe sometime in the future, that maybe there might, maybe someone could put together a all old man games major, just like a major with just old school games.
Well, I really liked what was the one they did?
Civil War.
Reload 37 or whatever.
Oh, Evil
that
Reloaded.
They did in SoCal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do this because like the upstart, like people are really kind of salty about new games. We can do this, and it's all of us from all these different scenes. It's CVS2, it's Alpha 2, it's whatever, and like also let's not forget the SNK players out there because those exist as well. But yeah, we can do this. We're taking the first steps towards it right now. But like I said, you gotta talk to one another. Like if you're not talking to one another, you're not gonna get anywhere. So yeah, I think we can do it.
That would just be so amazing, right? Just 3 days, just all old school games, and I bet even new players would be like, you could market it like, hey, this is what it was like to play. This was what the FGC was kind of like.
All I'm gonna do is anybody play it and make them put a quarter in my hand.
I kind of see the resurgence of old man games like vinyl. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Games that aren't made the same way anymore.
Yeah,
like this is not some like disparaging thing, but like there's definitely like differences between games made now versus games made then. Like there's an element of craft that's not quite the same way. The same way that a lot of people that made the best Capcom games also jumped ship and went to make SNK games, and they came with the best SNK games that were ever made.
Definitely.
So, like, it's there. We can do this, but we just gotta talk to one another. So no more regionalism. We talk to one another, and like, it's promote your game, promote your style of games. Oh wait, can I get a party shot at you, boy?
Oh, okay, Anthony, you mean?
Anthony.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, what is your game if you're not playing 3S? Like, what's your go-to?
Nothing really.
Fighting game only.
Oh, fighting game. Like if I couldn't play Third Strike, and I had to play another game.
Like, what's your like? Oh, there's no 3S at this tournament.
Oh, I would play ST.
Well, what a good answer.
I would rather play Hyper Fighting, but I would play ST.
I got a board. See you next time.
Well, definitely, we have. Oh, I love Hyper Fighting. I love that game. I think it's the best Street Fighter game.
You're not the only one, and I'll bring it out. If I meet you in person, I'll have it with me.
I don't know. I think it, but I think it's the best purely because of nostalgic reasons. Because that's the game that I probably spent the most time playing.
Oh yeah.
Before
my balls dropped, that was like the game I played.
Yeah, like I played it at home, and then I practiced at home, and then I would go to the arcade, and it was just, there's something about Hyper Fighting that's just, I don't know. And I liked it, and I like the old, like, do you remember the, oh gosh, I don't know I think it was GamePro who put it out. Remember that GamePro Hyper Fighting strategy guide?
And then the exaggerated artwork where it's just like forced perspective and all that?
Yeah. Yeah, that was so godlike. But yeah, I would definitely play either ST or Hyper Fighting if I didn't. But
I got a Hyper Fighting board sitting not more than 5 feet away from me under my bed. Yeah. So if you're there, and I know I'm at the same event, I'll bring it with me.
Okay, definitely. All right, guys. So that's all the time we have tonight for the Mutant Experience. I want to thank Brian for an awesome episode. You're welcome back anytime on the Mutant Experience.
Well, maybe we do a joint one at a tournament sometime.
I would definitely like that. I definitely am interested in Combo Breaker. It looks like an amazing event. It looks very well run, and I'd love to go back to Chicago because that's my town. I like that place.
If you come over, I'll put you up. So.
Oh, okay. Well then.
Get out here and I'll put you up.
Well then it's definitely sounding really good now. All right, guys. So thanks to everyone who joined us on the stream. Obviously, thanks Brian for joining us. Next week, the guest is sort of up in the air. I was supposed to have one of the French players, Lionoz, on the show, but it appears as though he's not going to be able to make it. And so,
Get somebody from Nebraska. Get eat.
I'm thinking about that. You know, maybe I really want Grimlock on the show.
I can arrange that.
I kind of want Grimlock on the show. You know, I also
Let's do that.
no troll.
I'll help it.
No troll. I would love to have Low Tier God on the Mutant Experience.
And his insights on Urian play?
Because like the thing is, right? Like anyone who plays and streams Third Strike, they're not like doing it for money. They're not doing it to get sponsored. Like if you stream Third Strike, you're streaming Third Strike because you genuinely enjoy playing the game. You know what I mean? Like nobody.
I don't know if he generally enjoys playing fighting games. Like that man is just like.
Like he could stream any game he wants.
I'm salty, but that man's angry.
Yeah, you know what? Say what you will about Low Tier God, but he doesn't have to stream Third Strike. But for some reason, he streams Third Strike. So I don't know.
Fishing for views.
So I guess so. And go to Galloping Ghost. We didn't talk about Galloping Ghost, but that's
Galloping
an awesome
Ghost. If
arcade.
you want to play a game that you have never played on an arcade cab, go to Galloping Ghost. If you want to play with competition, you go to Logan. Emporiums are also good. We have 2 of them. Don't go there for fighting games. Go there to have a good time. So, like, if you're in Chicago, approach me and I'll show you how to find a good time. Yeah. Fighting games are not.
Yes. Speaking of good time, we're going to go ahead and end the show so I can start drinking. My weekend starts today. And so, thanks again, Brian, for being on the show. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and I'll see you guys hopefully next week, and I'll let you know who the guest is sometime on the weekend. And so once again, guys, thank you, Brian. So once again, guys, welcome, thanks again for joining us on the Mutant Experience, and I will see you all soon. Later, guys.
Adios.